I will grow old, then I will die. I'll be a part of the oceans and sky. When I was young, before my life, I was a part of the oceans and sky.
Today, we are faced, I think, with the approach of what may be called the ultimate revolution, the final revolution, where a man can act directly on the mind-body of his fellows. Well, needless to say, some kind of direct action on human mind-bodies has been going on since the beginning of time. But this has generally been of a violent nature. The techniques of terrorism have been known from time immemorial, and people have employed them with more or less ingenuity, sometimes with the utmost crudity, sometimes with a good deal of skill acquired by a process of trial and error, finding out what the best ways of using torture, imprisonment, constraints of various kinds. But as I think it was Metternich said many years ago, you can do everything with bayonets except sit on them. That if you are going to control any population for any length of time, you must have some measure of consent. It's exceedingly difficult to see how pure terrorism can function indefinitely. It can function for a fairly long time, but I think sooner or later you have to bring in an element of persuasion, an element of getting people to consent to what is happening to them. Well, it seems to me that the nature of the ultimate revolution with which we are now faced is precisely this, that we are in process of developing a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy, who have always existed and presumably always will exist, to get people actually to love their servitude, love their servitude, love their servitude.
Welcome to this new Sheep Farm Meet the Flockers podumentary presentation. This is the first in a series called The Huxleys, Brave New World Order, and this is part one, Echoes of the Huxleys. Part one is an introduction of sorts, and not specifically just about the Huxleys, rather the synchronicities and links back to the various Huxleys. And you'll see this as we go through it. Giving examples of academic nepotism that is used to control us, the Goyim. The Huxleys are a British family and a who's who of British academic society. Many of its family members have excelled in science, medicine, the arts, journalism and literature. The family includes members who have occupied senior positions in politics, the BBC, and NGOs like the World Wildlife Fund or UNESCO, and the intelligence services. To the public, the Huxleys are probably an underestimated lineage that hide behind the famous shadow of author Aldous Huxley. However, the patriarch of the family was biologist, anthropologist, zoologist, anatomist known as Darwin's bulldog Thomas Henry Huxley. Thomas Huxley was born in 1825 and died in 1895 and was right there at the epicenter of the academic and financial reset which occurred sometime in the mid-1800s when they were discussing evolution and eugenics theories that have continued to haunt and shape our lives ever since. His grandsons were Aldous Huxley, the author of Brave New World and the Doors of Perception, and Aldous's elder brother was Sir Julian Huxley, who was another evolutionary biologist. He was the president of the British Eugenics Society and first director of UNESCO, and co-founder of the World Wildlife Fund, and the man who invented transhumanism. In fact, he coined the term. His other grandson was Sir Andrew Huxley, and he was a Nobel laureate physiologist. In this introduction, we will show examples of other academic dynasties and other information that is intertwined with the Huxley story. In the coming series, we'll dissect the Huxley family tree, covering generations of Huxleys who have changed the way we live. And lastly, we will cover Thomas Huxley, Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley, and Andrew Huxley in detail. There is no doubt that the Brave New World prophecies are in evidence today, playing out on the human population. Brave New World certainly epitomises the situation we're facing now. As I say in Yorkshire, it was bang on the money. This research was like walking into a spider's web. It was right there in front of my eyes, or our eyes, but we only ever see it at the last millisecond before we walk into it. That's how close we are to the truth, and that's how close we need to get to the truth. What this Huxley research has done, for me, and I hope for you guys as well, is reaffirm the mosaic's pattern, making the picture clearer. So we can then visually see the strands in the fabric within the tapestry of the matrix. We're then looking right through the veil covering their lie of our reality. The problem is, we cannot yet decipher the code. It's there though, just like the spider's web, but it's a web of deceit. What we're seeing are the matrix's zeros and ones, and that's what the Huxley dynasty is. They are the zeros and ones. They are the living matrix. Joining me tonight, as usual, is our Chris. How are you doing?
Good evening. You all right?
Evening, yes.
Very
What
well.
would you say to that intro, Chris? I know it was quite long.
That's a good intro.
but
It's nice, that far.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It sort of gets the sort of juices flowing to what are sort of uncovered and linked together. And when we've been talking about it, we've also found new bits of information that are intertwined in the Huxley story.
I like the use of the word podumentary.
Podumentary.
But you tried
it's-
docu podcast, but that wasn't quite as catchy.
No, docu podcast.
You love making
podumentary,
words
yeah.
up, don't you?
I don't think I made that up, to be fair, Chris. I
Oh,
think
did you
it's
not?
out there. No,
Oh,
I think
right.
it's out there, mate. I thought I had, but I've probably heard it somewhere else.
Oh.
So, first question to you. Before I started going on about this, what did you know about the Huxleys prior to me starting this research back in January 2021?
I reckon they first came on my radar, probably not even at school, because I was too thick to read a book like Brave New World, I would say. It was probably around when the film came out, the Doors film. Do you remember that? Because I
Yeah.
remember a lot of people were carrying that book around with them because they'd watched the Doors film, then they'd gone back and listened to Doors.
Yeah.
Found out, because I remember they re-released the book, The Doors of Perception, with Jim Morrison on the front, but it was Val Kilmer because it was to promote the film, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then people started saying, "Oh, have you read this book? It's this guy who took acid and blah blah." And I never read it myself, Doors of Perception.
Right.
And then I went on to read Brave New World when I got a bit older. Read that a few times.
So that was around, and you're talking of around when you were at college, around the second
90s.
Summer of Love era.
Just after, yeah.
Just
like,
after.
So the Summer of Love had happened. All the acid stuff had come out, you know.
Yeah.
And then it kind of continued into the 90s, I'd say, wouldn't you? The Summer of Love kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, with ecstasy, I suppose, then, after acid were a big thing.
Yeah.
But it kind of continued. And I think people, I don't remember when that film came out. I'm guessing that film came out in the 90s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But then I remember I was in London in, like 1991. And I remember someone had that book then.
Right.
So that's when Aldous Huxley first came on my radar. First time I'd heard of him.
Yeah.
I think it was about 1991.
It's sort of reinserted back into popular culture due to the second Summer of Love, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, he was behind promoting the first Summer of Love, and then they went on to bring the Summer of Love back again, didn't they? And even used the same name, and as we're going to talk about, the same imagery, which was the smiley face.
Smiley face. And also, I mean, acid music. I mean, it was actually called acid music, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, they weren't hiding it this time. It weren't, I mean, I'm not saying they did it in the 60s, but they certainly weren't hiding it. And it were mainly this country as well. So this country got hit, and a lot of...
kicked it off, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the major DJ stars.
I think it
Danny
even
Ra-
started up north, didn't it? I think it was.
No, I think they were
Northern
popping up.
clubs were more famous.
Yeah, they were popping up all over. I think the illegal parties, but
service stations, all that.
yeah, I think Danny Ramplin, who's obviously talking out about the whole nonsense now, he was part of one of the main DJs at that.
Well, I started going clubbing in the early 90s, so just after that. So I was only like 17, 16.
Yeah.
But when you think about that, well, even the acid ones, when you think about that, so you've got all these guys going to a field or whatever, taking drugs that they don't know where they've even come from which was similar again to the 60s, apparently.
Yeah.
On a strip, and then they're playing music, trance music.
Yes.
Probably even hardcore than they were in the 60s, because it's actually mind-bending trance music.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to guinea pig a load of people,
give them a load of acid,
and
give them music and give them music called trance,
and bleeps, and I mean, you remember the footage from the 80s. You were like, what the hell is going on there?
Yeah.
And then it kind of continued with ecstasy, didn't it? Where if you think of a club where they had. When those clubs became super clubs, it were clearly the drugs were controlled, weren't they? They were.
Yes.
They were controlled by certain people, so they'd give the drugs out with certain symbols on them as well. God knows what they meant at the time.
Yeah.
And then certain. I mean, what a way! I mean, if you're watching a reaction of what happens to people, it's like a bloody
fishbowl,
a test lab, isn't it?
Yeah. But most of those ecstasy tablets, and we're going to talk about that further on, but most of those ecstasy tablets were coming in from Holland, I do believe, Amsterdam. And so they were coming from one area. So, all right, they were drug dealers, but they had to get the raw materials from somewhere. And so these people were allowed to function and then import all these things. And like the first Summer of Love, when it were all peace and love, after a year, it became a drugs war. And people were getting whacked and all sorts of stuff in this country. And there was lots of violence, weren't there?
The manufacturing of those products, the acid tabs, that's a scientific endeavour. It's not just someone doing it in the bedroom, is it?
No, it ain't. No. And you only need to change, I would have thought, part of that ingredient list to make that acid tab to send people gaga. Bear in mind, in the late 80s, 90s, that technology were then 60, 70 years old. So they probably got them chemicals down to a fine art, hadn't they? That they knew 25 years later what them people who did all that were going to become.
Yeah.
That experiment had already been done. You know, they've been testing it on military people for years. So, but I mean, out of that came stuff like Blur and Oasis, and well, the Manchester Sound were before that. So all these things that were I mean, Mark Devlin will know this better than us, but all these orchestrated events that looked organic, now looking back, don't seem as organic, do they?
No, I mean, I think I started going clubbing before you did.
You did,
but you felt like you were part of a movement, didn't you? A rebel.
Yes,
even.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing they did in the 60s.
You were guinea pigs, really.
Well, you're actually probably guinea pigs, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I think with the drug? They used to call it the drug scene. Ironically. But I think with the drug scene, if you think what that would do, right, let's just say somebody took a drug, whatever it would be, and then they're dancing for 2 hours. Instantly, you're automatically turned on that pharmaceuticals work.
Well, yeah.
Even though they're illegal, yeah?
You're popping a pill, aren't you?
Yeah. So you're automatically... I look at it a bit like some mates who took... steroids when they were training. Same thing. They're injecting things, so injections work. It's that mind. Anybody looking at a bodybuilder who trains putting 3 stone of muscle on competing in Mr. Olympia, it's an advertisement that drugs work.
Yeah. Another, just on a slightly parallel subject, I've always thought, for instance, in the 80s, if you think, Scarface, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone wanted to be Tony Montana, even though he's an evil, horrible bastard. But look how they glamorized cocaine fire. And that was basically an advert for cocaine.
Yes. Yeah.
And there were a few other films like that. But that more than any, I think, was literally an advertisement. Written by Oliver Stone, by the way.
Well, again,
written by written by Oliver Stone, who also directed The Doors.
Yeah. well, does it surprise us that these things come back round? And also out of that came the grunge movement, which, you know, that again, it came after the 60s Summer of Love, where it sort of went really dark and horrible. This is not about the first Summer of Love, by the way. What we're looking at here is where the researchers taken me anyway, and then me and Chris had had a conversation, and he said, well, it links to that as well. And the Huxleys were brought back in, or Aldous Huxley's books were brought back into society.
Yeah, that's
and
what
the Doors were brought back in to that generation again for some reason, and Acid and all these other things. So it regurgitated back round again for a second hit.
Yeah.
And so Nirvana then took the dirtier side, and obviously they
that's
were
where all that emo
heroin
music came from, didn't it?
Yeah,
that emotional, like, you know, greasy flick,
depressing,
hanging down. Have you noticed the logo for Nirvana?
Go on.
It's the smiley face as we're talking, and it's got. I only noticed this the other day. It's got crossed eyes and its tongue hanging out like it's dead.
Yeah. Well, does that really surprise you?
What happened to old Kurt Cobain? I mean, all they had to do was put a blooming chunk missing outside of his head.
Yeah, and it had a blood spot on it, didn't it?
Has it got a blood spot on it?
I think one of them's. No, that's the Watchmen that you talked about earlier. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that because the smiley face is quite an interesting one. And you also had Forrest Gump going through the 60s.
Yeah. Well, they made out in the Forrest Gump film that he invented the smiley face, didn't they?
Yeah, when he wipes his face
he's
on
doing
that.
that when he wipes his face, it's got it on it. Quite funny. But again, brought back again and again the old smiley face. And one of the main links we had or thought of, I think Mark mentioned this in his book, is the smiley face in old Watchmen.
Yeah.
And that came out, if I remember, because I was a big comic fan, still am actually, but like 1987, I think it was, 86, 87, it was written as a series. I think I bought it in 1988, 89, I reckon.
Right.
And that re-brought the smiley face back again for the, I mean, I'm sure it was responsible partly because it was everywhere. And then it came back for the second Summer of Love.
So isn't it strange that you've got Acid, which adopts the smiley face. You've got grunge, Nirvana, that adopts the smiley face. And a few years before Acid, more or less the same time, you've got Alan Moore writing a comic that adopts the smiley face, that becomes the face of Acid. All organic, Chris.
Yeah, it must be.
All
and then
organic.
You've got Alan Moore, who's a known Crowleyite, occultist, magician.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be fair, his comic books are amazing, to be honest with you. I was crazy about all his stuff. I've got a lot of his comics. He wrote one, I don't know if I forgot to mention this to you. He wrote one of the last ones I don't buy so many anymore, and it's called Necromicon, and it's literally about H.P. Lovecraft and the coming of a demon coming, basically, to run the world, kind of thing. Quite a dark, very dark comic, quite graphic as well.
Well, you've just mentioned someone there who is also intrinsically linked to the Huxleys, H.P. Lovecraft.
Right, yeah.
Shares a similar bloodline.
Another name.
He's
another fella who's constantly dragged up and kept relevant over and over again, I think. I mean, I've got his book, all his writings there. I've read a couple of his stories, and they're pretty good. But he's definitely someone who gets attention for attention.
He's lauded as the king of sci-fi, isn't he?
Horror, I'd say.
Horror, is it horror?
Yeah, he's more horror. I mean, they did a series recently about Lovecraft, and I never watched it, but I think it was called Lovecraft, Land of Lovecraft or something. I think.
Right.
I can't remember what it was. It was a TV series, but I'm not massive familiar with his stuff. But he's always dragged back out again, like these people always are.
Well, just to go back through Alan Moore and his comics, he's a comic writer, novelist, short story writer, musician, and cartoonist. He's also a magician and dark occultist, a Crowleyite. Moore actually is a ceremonial magician of ritual magic, high magic, or learned magic, popularized by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Moore wrote V for Vendetta and The Watchmen, and he used what was the character, Chris, who used a smiley face?
The comedian in the comic of The Watchmen, he wears a badge, a smiley face badge.
Right.
And the way it was used in the comic was it had a blood splat on it, and the blood splat. If you remember the cover of the Watchmen, I'm sure everyone's seen it somewhere in the back of their head. It had a blood splat. Well, it was made into a film, wasn't it? It had a blood splat, but the blood splat was basically showing the doomsday clock.
Right.
So it was at 5 to 12.
And it's going to be very interesting how this sort of comes back full circle again from that, what you've just mentioned there. Yeah. Yeah, I was thrown from a hotel, blood splat, smiley face.
Well, I didn't mention that bit. The way that the blood splat ends up on the smiley face is he's thrown from his apartment window onto the pavement. And then in the comic, obviously shows him land, shows him drop. And then, to signify his death is the smiley face with the blood splat showing the doomsday clock. And all the way through the comic, it comes up again and again, and it shows it getting closer to midnight, basically. Because I don't know if anyone's seen The Watchmen, it's about the slow build up to the nuclear bomb dropping. Right.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned the Huxleys yet. I mean, we're obviously showing links here that their tentacles, if you like, or their energy, or what their work has bled through or filtered through into other people's work. And a quote from Alan Moore said he had a documentary called The Mindscape of Alan Moore. I don't know if you've seen it.
I saw it. I probably saw it when it came out, that fact, because I was so into that.
2003. He said, LSD was an incredible experience. Not that I'm recommending it for anybody else. Well, you just have. But for me, it's kind of, it hammered home to me that reality was not a fixed thing. That the reality that we saw about us every day was one reality and a valid one, but there were others, different perspectives, where different things have meaning that were just as valid, that had a profound effect on me. Bear in mind now, this is coming from a dark occultist, a magician, and a ceremonial magician of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, saying that. It's not just about somebody having a trip, is it?
No. What do you think? Are you implying that he's a bad guy?
I don't know. I don't know what a bad guy is anymore, Chris. Because these people are writing things that we enjoy, doing things we enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, again, is it another hero you got to throw out the window? Because I like Almo, and he's a very intelligent guy when you listen to him talking.
Are all these people intelligent?
Yeah, I mean, is he a pawn in it? One thing I do find
I'm sure Ted Bundy were intelligent.
One thing I always found interesting about Al Muir, he's quite vocal about the fact that his comics got turned into films because DC owned them, and he didn't get any money for it, and he always denounces the comic, which is fair enough. But then From Hell, which I think was independently published, and that got turned into a film, and he denounced that as well. But then you think, but you had not control, but you must have chose to sell that to
Didn't we hear all this with like Prince and George Michael, who said, when I own my own music and I can write what I want, I'll write stuff that I want. And when
Prince kind of did, didn't he? To be fair.
Well, I don't know. They all sounded the same to me. But when George Michael did it, he did it where he were dressed as a copper going into a men's toilet. You know, it was just like
it sounded the same as well. Didn't it?
It just sounded exactly the same.
To be fair, Prince kind of went off on his own, didn't he? He didn't.
I don't know. I'm not saying I didn't. I like Prince, but I'm not saying it sounded right a lot different from when he were Prince or Symbol.
Yeah.
So,
but it's just an interesting side note that I'm sure everyone's seen V. I mean, V for Vendetta fight. That mask, that V mask, is literally used for the what will they call that movement? They called them that. Definitely a dodgy.
Yeah.
Do you remember them ones used to? What are they called?
I don't know, but
you know what I mean. Don't
they used them on London Bridge and stuff like that, didn't they?
Yeah, they were basically fight the power kind of characters.
Yeah.
I mean, that looked like a stage nonsense to me, to be honest.
But I mean, V for Vendetta. I mean, we talk about Huxley's work and Orwell's and people like that. V for Vendetta were just as bang on the money.
Yeah, it's up there, isn't it? Yeah, it's brilliant comic that is, by the way.
Yeah.
I wasn't so keen on the film when it came out, but because I was a bit of a comic snob. But as I got older, the film's actually pretty. The Wachowskis produced it, I believe. You know, the Matrix guys produced it.
Right.
Or girls, turning to girls on the pair of them.
Have they? Honestly?
Yeah. Did you not know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of them's transgendered into a woman, and then the other one did.
Good for him.
Pair of brothers. Maybe we should do that.
I don't think that's going to happen, Chris.
Dominique.
Christine and Dominique. Yeah. I might not have a smiley face anymore. Talking of a smiley face, I just want to do a bit of background on the smiley face, because it was quite interesting when we started talking about this, actually. And it was quite accidental that we started talking about it. But then we realised it was used for acid, and the links to acid and LSD and Aldous Huxley, well, they can't get any stronger. A smiley, sometimes referred to as a smiley face, was first drawn by Harvey Ross Ball, who was an American commercial artist. Ball never applied for a trademark for the iconic smiley image and only earned $45 for his efforts. He designed the smiley in 1963, a year that strange coincidences happened, which we'll get onto later. And the smiley would go on to be the symbol of the second summer of love in 88 to 89, as well as all the other things we've just discussed. The smiley story goes that the State Mutual Life Assurance Company of Worcester, sounds exciting, Massachusetts, now known as Hanover Insurance, they've jazzed it up a bit, had purchased a Guarantee Mutual Company of Ohio. The merger resulted in low employee morale. Maybe a name change would have worked. In an attempt to solve this, Mr. Ball was employed in 1963 as a freelance artist to come up with an image to increase morale. Ball started with a sunny yellow circle containing a smile. However, he wasn't happy that it could be turned upside down to make a frown. By adding two eyes, one slightly bigger than the other, like mine, he created a smiley face. So that's the story behind...
I never realised it had one eye bigger than the other.
Well, the original one has.
Right.
The ones that have been... The ones that trademark now haven't.
Right.
So... Yeah, they sort of slightly tweaked it here and there. I don't think the Acid House one has either.
No.
We'll come on to the company in a sec. It's also that Homer Simpson yellow in it.
Yeah. Which isn't
again,
used broadly, is it? Only for certain things.
Only for certain things. But again, the Homer Simpson thing, we were talking about this the other day, which again Huxley comes into as part of the human potential movement. How and the Esalen Institute that he was part of as well. The human potential movement, where they absolutely ruined family values, if you like, and so Homer Simpson and all these other characters have been used to destroy the male.
Well, I mean, when you think about the Simpsons, making blokes look stupid. Look where we are now, Fat.
I know.
By 2023, I mean.
I know.
I don't know where we are.
No, I don't know where we are. Well, you just mentioned two guys who make films who you've seen interviewed over the years, the Wazowskis, who didn't look like women or bis or anything. They didn't speak like that. They never mentioned it once. And
one
now...
of them's transformed quite a while ago, actually. Quite a long time. And then the other one followed.
Right.
But they've made some interesting films in that world.
But again, if everybody's a Manchurian candidate, if all these people are Manchurian candidates, and we've explored again, that's all part of the MK Ultra thing. That's all part of the Huxley thing, the Tavistock thing. It's all Tavistock that's doing the sex changes and things like that. All of it's intertwined with this, and then they're into films and making films about...
well, you do wonder, don't you? Like the Matrix clearly had a lot of stuff in it. I mean, you can't even begin to talk about that. But then they did V for Vendetta, like I said, they produced that, I believe, and they also did Cloud Atlas, which is a heavy film. I've read the book of that, actually. The book's amazing. Yeah. The film's good, really good as well. But it's clearly pointing at all kinds of stuff, reincarnation. It's got karma. It's got everything in it. And then you think that. I think if I'm right, their films are Warner Brothers, and you think I think we've mentioned this before. That Time Warner. Why are they called Time Warner? Yeah. Are they the good good guys? Are they warning you of the time? I don't know. I'm talking, but
I don't know. Again, you don't know.
I'm not saying good bad guy. I don't know. But what I mean is, are they part of a faction? And they can't do anything, but they're warning us. Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers.
Maybe they think they're warning us. I don't know.
Who knows? Or maybe it's just revelation of the method, and even more so that,
Yeah. I would say they're all probably part of some sort of cult, different cults coming together. The smiley was introduced to France. I like it when they talk about, this was from Wikipedia, by the way, this bit. It was introduced to France. So why was it introduced to France in 1972? As a signal of a good news story in the newspaper François. Frenchman Franklin Lefrane used the image and trademarked the image. So it weren't trademarked before. He trademarked it. Today, Nicholas Lefrane, the CEO of the Smiley Company, the global business behind one of the biggest licensing success stories of the past 50 years. It is a brand licensing company based in London. It holds the rights to the smiley face in over 100 countries. The Smiley brand has revenues in 2020 of $538 million.
Bloody hell. I bet that other guy's popular with his family.
He's passed away now, him. I don't think he was short of a bob, to be fair to him, but yeah. So, I mean, we were discussing the smileys, and it led us into another. I think your missus said this, that she said, well, the smileys are part of the emoji explosion.
No, well, it wasn't that. She just literally said, that's like, because I was telling her what we were talking about. She said, that's literally the original emoji, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just in a passing comment. And it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
same colour.
Yeah. She does have her uses.
Yeah. Not just football.
But yeah. So the emojis are part of another phenomenon developed in the 90s by a Japanese interface designer, Shigetaka Kurita. I didn't do too bad with that one, Chris.
Didn't do too bad there, yeah.
Often cited for his early work with emoji sets. He was part of a team that created one of the first emojis used solely for communication. The first being a heart-shaped pictogram that appeared on the NTT Docomo pager aimed at teenagers. Interesting. Right. Heart-shaped, yeah. It went on to become the red heart emoji. So that was the first one. The Docomo emoji set he created is now on display at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. That's how important it is. The idea of the Museum of Modern Art, by the way, was developed in 1929 by Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, wife of John D. Rockefeller Jr.
A little side project for his missus.
Little side project, yes. NTT Docomo Incorporated. Docomo meaning everywhere in Japanese, and is a Japanese mobile phone operator owned by the giant Nippon Telegraph and Telephone Corporation, or NTT, which was operated by AT&T during the occupation of Japan after the war, and is ranked 55th in the Fortune Global 500, valued at $107 billion. The smiley was amongst the first set of 176 coloured emojis called the grinning face.
Right.
Which leads you into the clowns and Nephilim.
Sounds a bit more sinister as a grinning face, doesn't it? Than
yes.
Smiley.
Yeah. Listen to this though, Chris. Interestingly, AT&T morphed from a company Alexander Graham Bell set up with his even more interesting father-in-law, a man called Gardiner Green Hubbard, an American financier. In 1899, the Bell Telephone Company became AT&T. Bell and Green were also pioneers of wax-coated cardboard cylinders and discs, first used on graphophones, I presume are similar to gramophones. This company would go on to become Columbia Records.
Oh, ISIS Records.
ISIS Records. Now owned by Sony Music Entertainment, a subsidiary of Sony Corporation, America, with a market capitalization of $120 billion. We're talking about the biggest corporations here, pumping out emojis, smiley faces for a mutual assurance company.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you just thought there was something that your phone had
put just appeared on your phone.
Yeah.
Where do we actually think these things come from?
Yeah, you don't realise it.
You don't realise, do you? It was strange, Chris, because we read a book, right, called The Carnivals of Life and Death by James Shelby Downard. Remember that book? Yeah. We got it from Crow 777. He talked about Graham Shelby and Ilana Freeland and Michael Hoffman. They talk about James Shelby Downard. I think Michael Hoffman wrote a book with James Shelby Downard, and I think Ilana Freeland did some writing and ghostwriting or editing for some of the books. Anyway, the young Downard claims he saw Alexander Graham Bell involved in sex magic rituals on Jekyll Island. You remember that part?
Yeah, I
of that
remember
book?
that bit, yeah. bloody crazy, that book, isn't it?
Absolutely crazy. I recommend reading it.
Carnivals of Life and Death. Did you mention that?
Yeah, Carnivals of Life and Death.
It's bonkers. I mean, I wonder if it's actually, is it true or is it written in code or what is it?
I don't know. I don't know, but there's some bonkers stories in that.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that book within this a couple of times, not within this one, but further on in the other parts,
Right.
because there's a part in that book, and I know we're just moving off a little bit, that he talks about crockery being made out of bone china.
Yeah.
And the Masons use human bones as part of a ritual.
Yeah.
Well,
is that
the
really
Huxleys,
where bone china came from?
it were made out of animal bones, but they introduced human bones in it. But the Huxleys are married into and related into the Wedgwoods, the
famous potteries company, Stoke-on-Trent,
that were Quakers.
Was it Stoke-on-Trent?
That were Quakers that set up a. We're going to come into this as well. That set up a group called the Lunar Society.
Right.
Yeah. So that's an interesting topic, actually. Anyway, so we've got two mentions now of sex magic people, or ritual magic, or whatever you want to call it, within this in the first.
Well, occult spinnings, I'd say, aren't they?
Yeah, occult spinnings within the first hour. Graham Bell was definitely an active Freemason. I think he was part of a lodge called Harmony Lodge Number 17, and one of his friends was a Grand Master. I've been trying to dig out his friend's name, but I can only get the first name, so I'm not even going to say it. AT&T are also part of the military intelligence industrial establishment. For instance, Room 641A, sounds sinister, is a telecommunication interception facility operated by AT&T for the US NSA, or National Security Agency, as part of its warrantless surveillance program as authorized by the Patriot Act. And the New York Times has reported that AT&T is selling personal customer information to the CIA. And these are mainstream stories. Alexander Bell was an honorary president of the Second International Eugenics Congress, in 1921, and a proponent of eugenics. Now remember, Sir Julian Huxley was president of the British Eugenics Society, and the Huxleys, as we shall see, are also intermarried with the Darwins and the Galtons. So they're right in basically the invention of eugenics or genetics.
Even before old Hitler got involved.
Yeah. So the smiley face is linked with the Second Summer of Love from 88 to 89, where people were again drugged out their heads, this time on MDMA known as ecstasy. So they're even calling something like, they've got smiley face for acid and they're calling this ecstasy. So again, it's that.
Where did ecstasy? Was it a bit later? Was it like 90s? Was it again in 90s?
Late 80s. I think 80s, mate. It were 80s.
Late 80s.
80s. Yeah.
I remember that period of time because I remember ecstasy tablets at that time. Not that I took loads, but they were 20 quid a pop.
Right.
Going back to early 90s.
Right. I don't think that. I mean, I don't know what price they are now, but I bet they're not 20 quid a pop now.
No, what I'm saying is on the relevance of inflation or whatever. How much is that in today's money? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I reckon they were probably a lot stronger then than they are now.
Yeah.
A lot more watered down and toxic probably now as well. Whether they were toxic or not, I'm not saying they were only a 5 a day, but so when you look at this, what was the Second Summer of Love organic or another Tavistock controlled event, as in the First Summer of Love?
I think going on what I know now, I would say it was an orchestrated event.
Yeah, I would as well. MDA was first developed in 1912 by German pharmaceutical company Merck. It was used in the 1970s to enhance psychotherapy and became a popular street drug in the 1980s. Is this Huxley's Soma?
Right, yeah. Well, I would think his Soma would be prescribed. I wouldn't think it'd be a street drug.
Well, it could be both, couldn't it?
Yeah.
It could be because obviously he did say basically, we're going to drug you out of your mind and you'll be happy, which is what Klaus Schwab's saying. You will own nothing and be happy.
What better way to do it, Fatty? You've got people who won't take pharmaceuticals. Those people are the kind of people that will probably take recreational drugs. So you're covering all bases, aren't
you? Yeah. I found this bit interesting. The Merck Group, commonly known as Merck, is a German multinational science and technology company headquartered in Darmstadt, with about 60,000 employees, and in present, it's in 66 countries. Just smack me around the face with it. Yeah.
It just makes you wonder, is it like 64 countries and 59,000?
Yeah, but they had to put it there.
Round it off.
Just round it off and put 666 there. The Merck family was a German family of industrialists, bankers, what else, known for establishing the world's oldest pharmaceutical company, as well as the Hamburg Merchant Bank. The family still owns a majority shares in the pharmaceutical company Merck. During the interwar years, George Merck oversaw Merck's involvement in the development of synthetic vitamins, sulfurs, antibiotics, and hormones. George Merck was president of Merck & Co. pharmaceutical firm in the US. During World War II, George led the US War Research Service with Frank Olson, which initiated the US biological weapons program. Frank Olson, PhD, was an American bacteriologist, biological warfare scientist, and an employee of the United States Army Biological Warfare Laboratories, USBWL, who worked at Camp Detrick, now Fort Detrick, in Maryland. The War Research Service was also headquartered at Fort Detrick, so they both worked together. And this now brings us full circle to the Huxley, MKUltra, Alan Moore, LSD, and the smiley face connection. You remember the name, I'm sure, most of you, Frank Olson. Now let's go back to Alan Moore's Watchmen character again, Chris, the comedian. Explain what happened to the comedian.
Well, like I said, he basically, at the beginning of the Watchmen comic book, gets lobbed out of a window, down, and dies numerous stories, and then that's when the Doomsday smiley face Watchmen logo comes from, with the splatter blood aimed at 5 to 12. Now, I get the link, because I was telling you this, and then you went, oh my God, that's Frank Olson.
Exactly. It turns out that Frank Olson was covertly dosed with LSD by his colleague, Sidney Gottlieb. Gottlieb, then head of the CIA's MKUltra program. 9 days later, he plunged to his death from the window of the Hotel Statler in New York on November the 28th, 1953. The Statler Hotel in New York became the Hotel Pennsylvania. The Statler Hotel chain was sold to Hilton Hotels in 1954, the year after. The Rockefeller Commission, a trustworthy commission, reported on the CIA in 1975, acknowledged their having conducted covert drug studies on fellow agents. So not just on the population or the army or unwilling prisoners in prisons, but they actually, hey mate, do you want a drink? Yeah, here's 25 trips.
I remember watching stuff about that. I mean, have you ever seen the film Jacob's Ladder?
I have never watched it, Chris. No.
That goes into that world. And I remember reading about this years and years and years ago. And I think his family are still they were still trying to sue for saying that they murdered the dad or granddad or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very similar story, isn't it?
But this is all around the same timeline, isn't it? The 50s, Aldous Huxley was banging to this LSD. I mean, it was before that, but he was part of all this.
Is that window throw a coincidence? That's the point. Is that a coincidence?
Again, when you're doing this research, the same names seem to pop up, the same families seem to pop up, even though there's different characters intermixing with them.
Same weird instances.
The same weird instances pop up.
Throw,
yeah. I mean, that's smiley face. Also, and we'll come on to this in a bit, but that smiley face of the comedian with the head splat. Then you've got it was written in smiley face was in 1963, and JFK got shot through head. And that blood splat is right where he got shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the the
Watchmen triangle of
Watchmen
smiley faces.
Yeah, exactly. Olson's death is one of the most mysterious outcomes of the CIA mind control project, MKUltra. The US government first described his death as a suicide and then as misadventure, while others allege murder.
Is Gottlieb... Sorry, fine. Is Gottlieb that guy who said he had like the best job in the world? Is that him?
Yes.
He was setting up stings with prostitutes and LSD and all that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. There were a few of them. I think that might be Jolie West.
Right.
Which we're going to come on to in a bit. But
all right,
there were quite a lot of them doing that, weren't there? But Gottlieb was the guy who was heading up MKUltra.
Right.
Do you know what? I edited so much out of this part because I didn't want it to be a big part of this. I wanted it to be just to show that these people are all intertwined with this. I mean,
I know that one of them, I saw one of them described it as he had the best job in the world because he could just do what he wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know which one of these.
Well, this guy's got a free ticket. This guy's got a free ticket, basically.
And some of the stuff he described reminded you of that prostitute bit in Godfather where they set him up.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it also reminds you of like Jason Bourne, doesn't it? When he's it's that type of. I mean, one of the guys. We'll come on to him in a sec. Gottlieb conducted experiments with cannabis, or THC, a derivative from cannabis, cocaine, heroin, and mescaline. He realised that CSD had not been properly tested or investigated by the agency. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? So he might as well do it himself. Gottlieb used physicians such as Scottish-born Donald Ewan Cameron and Harris Isbell in controversial psychiatric research, including non-consciential human experiments. And if you remember, we talked about Donald Cameron in the Trudeau one, because I think he was at Toronto University, and they got sued 20, 30 years later for conducting these experiments. And
I think they even admitted that they went into tube stations and released gases and down alleyways and then followed the people in them alleyways. I think that's admitted, isn't it?
Yeah, it is admitted. Yeah. And we I mean, this is not dissimilar from Operation Cauldron that we were talking about. That came out of Fort Detrick, and Lyme disease as well. All these things come out of this era, where there was spraying and dropping ticks and all across the length and breadth of Britain and Europe and
but your government loves you, and the government loves you, and they just want you to take that thing.
Trust us. It's
trust us while we get you an headlock and garrote you.
Its efficacy is 100%. But it's not. The efficacy is not what we're telling you it is. Gottlieb administered LSD and other hallucinogenic drugs to unwitting subjects and financed psychiatric research and development of techniques that he said would crush the human psyche to the point that he would admit anything.
Nice. Lovely. Thank you, Gottlieb.
These are his own words. An interesting link to Gottlieb, and back then, full circle to the Summer of Love and like the Doors and things like that, is a link to Louis Jolyon West, known as Jolly West, who pioneered research into the use and abuse of LSD. I think he actually drugged up an elephant or something like that at one point.
That sounds familiar. I've heard that story.
Yeah. West received funds from the CIA through the Human Ecology Fund, and West became part of the MKUltra project. Author Tom O'Brien, in his book Chaos, it's a fantastic book. I'm just reading halfway through it, actually. Big book. It took him 20-odd years to... Yeah. We mentioned two good books there to buy if you're going to want to look at some books. Anyway, he uncovered links to Gottlieb West and West's involvement in a program with Charles Manson in the late 50s and early 60s, well before the Tate LaBianca killings. He was also appointed as Jack Ruby's psychiatrist.
Jack Ruby Slippers.
Yeah, Jack Ruby Slippers. And so we've now come to, is Jack Ruby's psychiatrist. Huxley, JFK died on exactly the same day. He's now going and drugging Jack Ruby. He pronounced Jack Ruby psychotic and delusional after the first 45-minute meeting.
Skilled psychiatrist.
Yeah. He said he suggested further interrogation. So bear in mind, he's his psychiatrist, but he's talking about interrogation, not questioning or helping. Yeah. Under the influence of sodium penthanol, and hypnosis.
I'm guessing sodium penthanol is a truth serum of sorts, is it?
Yeah, but they also use it. Sodium penthanol or sodium thiopental is on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. And it's used to induce medical comas and used in the US to execute prisoners by lethal injection.
Fucking hell. Wow.
It's an essential medicine, Chris.
Right. Should be in everyone's cabinet.
Yeah. Jack, this is one of your 5 a day.
With a little skull and crossbones on it.
So Jack Ruby's diagnosis of total mental breakdown happened after the first of West's consultations. According to Tom O'Brien's book, Chaos, West had bragged that he could brainwash a subject within a short period of time and turn them into a Manchurian candidate or totally destroy them mentally.
Bloody hell. Well, that... It sounds like that guy's egos are just out of control, so he would admit that, wouldn't he? Because he's going around bragging about it.
Yeah, so you've got the guy who employed him at bragging that he can destroy somebody and turn them to jellyfish.
Yeah.
And you've got the guy he's employed saying he could turn them to jellyfish. You've got the other 2 guys that worked at universities that have been sued for brainwashing people.
Well, you imagine these have all been given free reign to do all these experiments, right?
These are the ones we know about.
They're untouchable, so you can imagine their egos. So they're going around shouting the fat mouths off about it, aren't they?
So we've got, at the time of the shooting of a possible Manchurian candidate 1, Lee Harvey Oswald, on November the 24th, 1963, my Manchurian candidate 2, Jack Ruby, who at the time was also taking metadrezine, a central nervous system stimulant.
I have to point out as well, very quickly, and it's not me who found this out, but I always find that fascinating. The Oz, Jack Ruby slippers, and the Wizard of Oswald connection.
But that was Shelby Downard.
Was it? Right.
That was in his book. We're going to talk about that in a minute, actually. He called it The Killing of the King or King 33.
I've never read that. I've never read that one. Yeah, but Wizard of Oz is often used in the MK Ultra world, isn't it? I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, you can't dispute that link, can you?
Well, I don't think you can. The Killing of Oswald by Jack Ruby Slippers. I mean, come on. I mean, do you know when I heard that on Crow 777?
Is that where it was? I knew it.
It was Crow 777. Yeah. Right. When I heard that on there, because I know when Crow found it out, you could tell that he'd gone, "Oh my!" You know, he gets quite excited when he learns something like that.
Slap the top of your head moment.
Yeah. But yeah, so at the time that he killed Lee Harvey Oswald, he was taking fenmetrazine, which is a stimulant for his central nervous system. It'd be interesting to see who's giving him all these drugs.
Well, we know that guy, wasn't it?
He couldn't even. When they interviewed him, he couldn't even remember being in the underground.
Right.
He couldn't remember anywhere. So, yeah. So behind the Flower Power Summer of Love in 1967 and the second Summer of Love in the UK in 1988 to 89, there were powerful sources at play. The smiley face, to me, seems a little bit more sinister now, doesn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
So why mention this information about the first and second Summer of Love? LSD, MK Ultra, CIA, Tavistock, etc. Well, the Huxleys, Sir Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley, and their younger brother, Sir Andrew Huxley, were the generation of Huxleys in the mix of this academic science religion. And here we have Fort Detrick mentioned, who, along with the UK's Porton Down, were used for projects like Operation Cauldron or Operation LAC, the large area coverage trials, that poisoned us and generations before us, and still do in a huge eugenics operation. I mean, what on earth are they doing now?
Well, chemtrails.
Yeah, exactly. Then they employed lunatics like Sidney Gottlieb, who in turn employed Donald Cameron, Harris Isbell, and Jolly West to conduct experiments using LSD and other drugs to mass mind control populations. And then we have Sir Julian Huxley, president of the Eugenics Society, and the person who basically invented transhumanism. And then we talk about 2 well-known producers of films to changing the sex. Mm. Just in this conversation, we're talking about that. Yeah. Who came up with the films V for Vendetta and things like that. Then we have Aldous Huxley, who many say actually ran Tavistock and possibly MK Ultra, and used LSD with Timothy Leary, who wrote dystopian novels that have a habit of coming true. Then we have Sir Andrew Huxley, the president of the Royal Society, who married. This is interesting. We're going to come on to this in further episodes. He married Jocelyn Resender Gemmell. Her maiden name was Pease, the daughter of geneticist Michael Pease, son of Edward R. Pease, founding member of the Fabian Society, and one of the founding families of Barclays Bank. And his wife, Helen Bourne Wedgwood, eldest daughter of the First Lord Wedgwood, part of the Darwin Wedgwood family, relative of left-wing Viscount Tony Wedgwood Benn.
So Darwin Wedgwood, Darwin making little china cups out of your bones. Nice. Gives it a whole new look, doesn't it, when you see those like old colonial English things where they're drinking tea, drinking tea out of those little
tea with them long wigs on.
Yeah, and and probably the enemy's bones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've used bones as trophies for.
Do you know? I never knew that bone china was made of bones. Actually, you mentioned it. I didn't know that.
Isn't it weird how it's called bone china, and we would never think it were made out of bones?
No, I didn't know that.
I think it's bone powder. Well, it's bone powder, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's so strong. It's quite strong and translucent, isn't it? It's,
yeah. But it's a different cup, isn't it? It's not like a normal pottery. It's like clay. It is actually a different.
It's so fine you can see light through it. Yeah.
Yeah. And my Mrs. Dad, he likes drinking tea through proper bone china.
Right.
Old school type.
I mean, have I even ever seen any bone china? I don't even know.
I don't know. Yeah. Interestingly, that these guys were bang smacking the founding of the Fabian Society, and a British socialist organisation whose purpose is to advance the principles of social democracy and democratic socialism via gradualist and reformist efforts in democracies, rather than by revolutionary overthrow. That's just a nudge that Mickey uses.
I'm going to say that sounds like the original of all the other foundations and societies you talk about now. Sounds like the blueprint, doesn't it?
Well, listen to this, right? The Fabian Society...
Make it sound nice.
Yeah. The Fabian Society's purpose is to promote greater equality of power, wealth and opportunity, the value of collective action and public service, an accountable, tolerant and active democracy, citizenship, liberty and human rights, sustainable development and multilateral international cooperation.
Oh God, that's even more so, isn't it, than what I just said? It's like, oh God, they were doing it even then. Oh, wow.
Yeah. That is like, again, the Fabian Society, that was the World Economic Forum, isn't it?
I'm going to say you could take any of them foundations and whatever you've talked about over the last 2 or 3 years, and it's just a blueprint for that, isn't it?
Yes.
A lot of words that sound lovely, but really they're to fucking bend you over and rod you and bring the cousins.
But bear in mind, I mean, a lot of these, like Keir Starmer, Romper Stomper, he's a member at Fabian Society, B. Lyer was, all these people are all members of this that then go to the World Economic Forum, that are then interviewed by Bill Gates, that are then, go to all the same clubs and whatever meetings.
It's the same word, in fact. It's the same word, and it's the same little sentence, isn't it?
And I think they write these things to know, let the other people know that they're in their club, and they're following the orders. The Fabian Society was founded on the 4th of January 1884 in London as an offshoot of a society founded the year earlier, called the Fellowship of the New Life. It could be New Labour.
Sounds like hobbits.
You just sound like hobbits. Early fellowship members included the visionary Victorian elite, among them poets Edward Carpenter and John Davison, sexologist Havelock Ellis, and the before-mentioned early socialist Edward R. Pease. Edward Carpenter was an English utopian socialist, poet, philosopher, anthologist, and early activist for gay rights and prison reform. Bit of a
good combo.
Good combo there. whilst advocating vegetarianism and taking the stance against vivisection. As a philosopher, he was particularly known for his publication of Civilization, Its Cause and Cure. Here he describes civilization as a form of disease through which human societies pass. Aldous Huxley recommended Carpenter's pamphlet.
I will grow old, then I will die. I'll be a part of the ocean and sky. When I was young, before my life, I was a part of the oceans and sky.
You're on, Chris. Good evening, everybody. Either see the chat's lively. Might as well bring Mark in straight away. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction. Can you hear us all right, everybody?
You did it on purpose.
You think he's doing it on purpose. I hope not. I hope we can't hear him. All right, welcome everybody. You're tuned into Sheep Farm Live with our mate Mark Bajerski from Huddersfield. He's actually in España, but there you go. The Spanish Huddersfieldian.
Is that a symbol?
Yeah, that's a symbol, yeah. Oh, you better be careful. I've just let my goat out.
Who did that? The Crankies?
Yeah, we're cranky.
Well, just turn that light off.
Yeah. The subject for tonight is synchronicities, or life synchronicities. So you're going to be watching this on our bullshit platform. I hope Mark's got his big shill mic ready.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah. Have you got your big shill mic, Chris?
Yeah, it's here, look.
Yeah, we shilled up to the max.
You got my witch piss?
I've got my shill t-shirt on.
I've got my witch piss. I've got Mark Devlin's.
I've got my witch piss and some water.
For tea.
How much is your bottle of witch piss?
What is that, Matt?
This is organic pomegranate juice, which just cost me €15.
Yeah. What,
right.
Just a simple pomegranate.
Yeah. So how much was your witch piss? Your grapes?
Probably about £7.
Yeah.
£7. So this is like double.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why people drink alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Because it's cheap as shit.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something. I've got a farm, and I have.
Can you pull your mic just closer to you, Mark?
Yeah. I've got a farm. Can you hear me now? One, two.
We don't normally have a problem hearing you, but that were a strange sensation not being able to hear you.
You couldn't hear me. That must have been awful. You have to take drugs for that. It. Ask my ex-wives.
Yeah.
No, I've got a farm, and I've got 4 tons of organic mangoes, and I can't even get €1.60 for 1 kilo of mangoes.
Why is that then?
I'm in Spain, and this is the other reason, right? Farmers, I've realized, cannot sell their yield because you are beholden to these companies.
To Big Pharma.
To big corpse.
Yeah.
So it's a lose-lose, and you try and deal with corporations and stuff, and you try and get out there to the organic world, but unfortunately, it's very challenging.
Imagine a world, Mark, 200, 300 years ago, the word organic didn't even exist because everything was organic.
200 or 300 years ago, you blew in 50.
Well, yeah, probably less than that, yeah.
You say the same thing about alternative medicine. I mean, you know, alternative is the pharmaceutical. Our world, which they call alternative, is the world of healing.
It's the real world, which we're going to talk about some of that, no doubt, at some point today.
I remember the first organic, one of the first organic restaurants opening in Islington, because I worked in Islington, and that, what was that, late 90s? And she said she was going to work at the head chef said we were going to work in organic. Chef said, "Oh, gimmick or organic." she wasn't amused.
Oh, gimmick, I like that one. Yeah, oh, gimmick, yeah, haw gimmick.
Well, they just turned it into an agenda show, didn't they? The organic,
yes,
you know,
yes.
Not what, like you said, everything used to be organic.
Well, now, Chris, it only has to be 70% organic. It's going down all the time as well because now
they change the ingredients, don't they? So they can.
No, it's not the ingredients. It's the stipulation to make it organic. It used to be like it had to be 100% organic. Now, then, because they're sprayed everywhere, now it can only has to be 70% organic. Right. How does that work? Yeah, but yeah, I've just had a celery, cucumber, and golden delicious juice with kumba. Yeah, so as well. Okay. So we don't usually do a lot of live events, but me and Mark were talking on the phone the other day, and we started talking about synchronicities, and I told him this story that my son had told me. Chris knows it, yeah. So we're going to talk about some of our own synchronicities that have happened to us all. I'm sure there are in the chat as well. What I'd like to do as well is next time, because I don't think this will be a one-off, to be honest with you, because I think there's a lot to go through, and we're not going to boggle my head or everyone else's head with hours and hours of this, but I think it'd be an idea that if you've got some synchronicities yourself, similar to the ones we discussed tonight, if you email them into me, right, just briefly, don't give me Magna Carta, because we'll end up reading them, just the bullet points, right, and we'll choose some out, and I'll invite you into the chat next time, right, so I invite you onto the show, like we are here, with the camera, to talk about your synchronicity. I'm not going to be able to invite everybody, so it might be the ones that I don't read every email, but it might be the ones that just capture and feel a decent story there. So, yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. Does it you, Mike?
Be able to look at some on the screen tonight to be able to pull some of them out as well.
Well, if people email me, I will be able to. If they email them over, you know, we can have a look at some of the emails if you want.
We could just break some of them down, and maybe it might give them a little bit of I don't know, enlightenment.
Or put them in the chat, Chris. You keep an eye on the chat. Write a few in the chat, and just try and find anybody there that we can sort of talk about, if you like. That'd be good for the latter part, if you like. What I will say is, because we're doing this live event, there won't be another release this week. I'll release the audio of this show without the intro, obviously, as a podcast at the weekend. So. Jimmy Hooves just said, I wonder if Dom Jolly will write in. He might be watching. James.
No, the other guy.
You know, not very jolly. Dom. Who is it? That other Dom. You know, that guy runs about with that giant. Oh, forget it. If you don't know him. Yeah. Anyway. So we don't normally do a live event, but we thought this actually needed to be a live event because it's important. I think it is. I think this stuff is coming to the fore more now. We're noticing a lot more of this stuff happening. I certainly am in my private life. If my son's coming and telling me and our Chris about synchronicities that's happening in his life and happening in his life, then it is happening more and more, because he's not somebody who really come and make stuff up like that anyway, but he's not somebody who talk about it, let alone else. 6'3" gorilla of a lad, you know. It's not somebody you want to talk about. Leave it for us old fogies. So yeah, I'll release this on sheepfarm.co.uk, Podomatic, all the usual ones it gets distributed on, Rumble and Odyssey. Yeah, and if I download it and send it to Mark will probably put it on his as well. So we can all have a re-listen if you like. The Don't Believe the Matrix series, the new one out. I did an hour-long one with that's. I don't know, putting them together. I didn't want to put it on the beginning of this because I didn't want to spoil the mood. Because some of those Matrix ones can get a bit. You want to smash your screen up. But, right, so synchronicities. Interesting, Mark. Do you know where the word comes from?
Synchronicity.
Yeah, it's not the police.
Where does the word come from?
Yeah, who came up with the term?
That's good. I don't know.
No, I didn't. Carl Jung.
Wow.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So we already know that it's an establishment word.
Yeah.
And I think you were talking, Chris, earlier, weren't you, that they were playing Freud and.
Well, we were just on about the Jung thing, and I was saying that it seems to me like the Freud and the Jung thing was like an early, blue and red opposites, because I think Jung fell out with. I don't know. I won't pretend to know a lot about it. It was like there were the two ones, wasn't it? There was the Freudian one, and then the Jung was a bit more pretended to be a bit more spiritual and a bit more religious. But then they're still quoted now, and when were they around all them years ago? And now they're still the bastions of psychiatry, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's quite odd in it, and I would say they're a character similar to like the Darwins and the Huxleys and stuff that were just planted there to continue selling whatever they're selling, wherever that what the hell that is.
Yeah.
But
again, these people are repeated in history. So I know we're talking about one word there. He came up with so many different theories and etc. that are now in the psyche of everybody. But what it seemed to be doing, my quick scan through, it was like they were trying to put, I'll call it a Jordan Peterson explanation around this phenomenon that's happening. Because I'll read out what the Wikipedia thing says about synchronicity. So the meaning of it is a simultaneous occurrence of events which appear significantly related but have no discernible causal connection.
Mm-hmm. And do you know? Can you break that down? Like if you have a black top on tonight and I have a black top on, and I'm drinking pomegranate juice, and you're drinking pomegranate juice. Mm-hmm. That's a coincidence.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Wikipedia say a 2016 study found 70% of all therapists agreed synchronicity experiences could be useful for therapy. Yeah, for therapy. Analytical psychologists hold that individuals must understand the compensatory meaning of these experiences to enhance consciousness rather than merely build up superstitiousness. However,
enhance.
How does that enhance? That locks you up.
It's more like a trap. It's more like it's the actual opposite.
Yeah. So, enhancing consciousness through conventional psychology. That's what that doesn't work, doesn't it? So, however, clients who disclose synchronicity experiences report not being listened to, accepted, or understood. The experience of overabundance of meaningful coincidences can be characteristic of schizophrenic delusion.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll put that in there.
So you're having a mystical experience and you're called a lunatic, basically.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the other one here is, as I said, Carl Jung came up with a word to describe events that coincide in time and appear meaningfully related, yet lack a discoverable causal connection. Jung held this was a healthy function of the mind that can often become harmful within psychosis.
Amazing.
Yeah.
If you're going to rape and tear apart truth and our connection to our intuition, he's just done it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought, Don, when you was reading it out, I thought, because he was the spiritual one out of the Jung and Freud thing, I thought he was going to go along and say it was a freeing experience or something. I thought he was going to be on side, if you like.
Maybe he was, but then somebody came along and tapped him on his shoulder.
Yeah.
They just seem like characters, don't they? Again, like Jordan Peterson and George Orwell, like all these people, they just seem like characters.
After you guys have learned so much, do you believe anything at all about your history going past, say, 20 years or even 10 years?
No.
It's a good place to start, though, eh?
It is, isn't it?
It
Yeah,
is
it's a good place to start. To see the lies.
I think it's a good place to be in your mind, isn't it? That
and they're actually telling you. They're actually telling the opposite. So whatever any of these guys tell you, just do the opposite.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
If they were telling you to look up, look down.
Telling you to look down, look up.
Yeah, exactly.
What I got out of that, and I'm sure just to summarize that, is that synchronicities basically can be what you said, a coincidence, and if it's not, what we're going to do is classify it as a mental illness. That's what I got out of that part, you know.
I explain it. You keep saying it, and you're a nutter.
Exactly. If you keep saying it, we're gonna
lock you up.
Yeah, and have you noticed now that, I mean, me as a healer over the years, I've seen mothers trembling coming into my healing little room and been absolutely terrified of telling me that their child is speaking to spirits. Right. And why are you scared? Why are you so nervous? This is normal. And it's like, well, then you realize they've been brainwashed. Like my child could be locked up. They could be taken away from me. This is how tight and strong this system is.
Yeah. Yeah. How much ridicule. Tell that story, Chris. You'll tell it better than me. The one where my grandson, my grandson was in his cot laughing.
Yeah.
And he had that piece of paper in his mouth. Yeah.
Your Jacob Dom's son, his little boy, Jacob and his missus, Loza, said they hear him laughing a lot in his cot on his own, which is quite nice. And they said they went in this one time and they found a piece of paper in his mouth that come out, been like a speech bubble. She sent me the picture of it, and it'd been ripped out of a book, and he had it in his mouth, and it said, "I am hiding too." Was it "I'm hiding too," Dom?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Too. Wow. And she looked everywhere in the house for where this piece of paper had come out of. Obviously, you know your kids' books, don't you? She didn't recognize it. Found nothing, and it was just there in his mouth. And she'd
that is interesting. That is really interesting. That is phenomenal, actually. That is something I would be writing in a book.
Yeah,
what do you get out of that? Do you get that there could be some kind of spiritual intervention or a spirit that is around and it's manifested that piece of paper from somewhere? It could have been from anywhere. That piece of paper could have been brought in, torn out, but the fact that it said what it said was a piece of paper could have been a sign that could have then led you on to say, okay, well, let me listen to this. Let me follow this. But I bet you didn't.
No. Well, this is quite recent. This is, Mark. It's only...
you didn't follow it. You just went, wow, and then left it. You can't go any further.
They did look, like I said, they looked for all the books, through all the books in the surrounding area. And
I don't mean that.
Yeah, no, you didn't mean energetically.
I'm spiritually speaking.
I can't begin to think. I mean, it was probably between Dom's kid and his missus. You know, might mean something to them. Or we've got another story.
Jacob and his missus.
Jacob and his missus. It could link to the other story that he told us.
Yeah, I'll tell the other story, Chris.
Yeah.
So like you own a farm, me and Chris own a farm. We had it left to us by his father. It's a small holding, it's not a farm. You know where it is, Mark. And Jacob was more or less brought up there by his mother. And they both passed away now, but he's got a strong spiritual connection to the place. When his young'un were being born, they thought the young'un might have some problems. He had to go for some tests for Edwards syndrome, right? So he went down to the house with his dog, and dog's running around the field, and he went into the barn at the house and shouted out to his nana, because he was very close to his grandma. "Nana, just give me a sign." He said, "I were in tears, bubbling, you know." He didn't tell me this, he told Chris. He told me after, when Chris told me about it, because obviously he was deeply shocked with his story. "Tell me it's going to be all right, right? Show me a sign." Anyway, the dog's barking in the field. And the field is, at the side of the field, there's a wall and a house. Right, you probably can't picture it. It's a 2-acre field, and there's a wall and a house, and it's barking at this thing. So he gets himself, stops himself crying and what have you. Jumps over the wall, goes and gets his dog, and this old woman comes out of the house and says to him, he's never met her before, by the way. He says to him, "You're going to be all right," or "Everything's going to be all right." Sorry, everything's going to be all right.
No, Dom, it was worse than that. It was stranger than that. Her daughter was behind.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
I do apologize. I thought you were missing the best bit out. Sorry.
No, I wasn't going to miss the best bit out. So everything's going to be all right. But then he said a daughter came out of the house and said, my mum thought I had Edwards syndrome when she was pregnant with me. And he's never met these two people before.
So, do you want me to give an explanation for that?
Yes,
sorry, Matt, 1 second. It was weirder than that, Dom, because she named the needle. She had to have an intravenous needle put in her stomach, which was quite dangerous. And she named I don't know the name, I can't remember the name of the needle. It was procedure. She named the procedure and said, everything's going to be all right. Like Dom said, the daughter came out and said, I had to have a thingy when she was born, and everything was fine. Jacob said he immediately had a beaming smile and walked back to the house, smiling his head off. I remember she named them needle, Dom. We should have got Jacob.
She's now moved, that lady, as well. Very soon after she moved.
So this is incredible, and it's very common in the spiritual world. And what happens is that sometimes somebody can just say something and not know why they've said it, especially when they become aware and awake, and especially when spirit is able to work through them in a loving way, not taken over as demonic. Isn't attachment, isn't anything dark. It's just a moment where spirit can pass through you and just say something. And this often happens. It's actually a very, very, it's not rare. It happens every day, and people do it without even realizing. And sometimes you can be sat with somebody at the worst point in your life, and you can just simply say something. And then I often hear this, that they've said, my mum died, and she said, if there is such thing as an afterlife, I'm going to leave you a message, and this is the message. So often psychics, healers, mediums, clairvoyant, clairaudient, or just a normal mum or a man can be just sat with you and say those words, and they don't even know what they've said. So this is a very common factor to help us at our worst possible moment, when we feel like we want to kill ourselves, we feel desperate. It's a cry for help, and it's provable now that spirit does walk by our side, and they will intervene at these moments when they feel it's necessary. I have no idea whether the spirit world, a lot of people say that the spirit world can't do this. It's against the kind of rule of the spirit world, but they do it. And there's never a negative with it. There's never anything dark about it. So I would disagree. I would say that, you know what, I'm going to, a spirit world, if I'm the spirit father and I'm watching my child, look, you have to go through these things. But if there's a point where I think, okay, you just need a little bit of help now, I will intervene. And that's spiritual, that's spirit's intervention.
Yeah, well, I think that was a good example of it, Mike. I think... and also he said that the dog never barked in that field, by the way. And when he got there, it just stopped. Yeah. Which is also quite...
Somebody put a nice comment in chat there. No, I wouldn't say it was nice. If you can't see, smell the bullshit if you all own farms. It's not really a farm, mate.
Mine's a farm, and it's big, and it's worth a fortune.
Some people are just mental, aren't they? Just anyway, yeah. Anyway, who cares?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean that story there is typical. That's for you, Mark. It's not out there. For us, it's out there. Even though we sort of accept that these things do happen. We haven't done obviously the work that you've done. But then you've got the little synchronicities, the little small things that seem to just pop up. Chris mentions them to me all the time. You know, just little things that are meaningless. We think are meaningless.
Exactly, Dom. Exactly. And I spoke. Did I ring you up and you said, "Shit, I was just about to ring you"?
Yes, that were only last week. Yeah.
Right. So a little thing like that, those are called, to me, that they're synchronicities. That's what a synchronicity is, kind of. That's like, wow, that's a sign. That's a psychic connection. And I think we lose that as children. So I think that if you look at everything that you've been talking about this last hour, everything that goes into my mind is they're always after the children. And when they can't get the children, they're after the teenagers. it's almost like they're after us all the time to put us into some kind of hypnosis.
Yes.
Like I said, the whole point about children is that they're pure. And if they weren't injected, if they were left alone, like a lot of my client, I can honestly say there's a pattern, guys, if you're listening. If you don't inject your children, you'll find that your children have more connection to the spirit world. They end up talking to the spirit world on a daily basis. If the mums and dads have got an open mind and they've not been brainwashed by religion, and then they might come to a healer or a psychic, the psychic will say this is a normal phenomena and it's a beautiful phenomena. Take care of that child, look after your child, and make your child feel comfortable in that process. By doing that, you eliminate fear, you eliminate embarrassment, you eliminate everything. So the child has a normal upbringing, which no children do anymore because they've all been injected, nearly all of them. And that basically eliminates the psyche, that it eliminates the intuition. It basically puts you into a state of fighting all day. So you don't have that magical flow and that beautiful body temple. So I say this as truth. A lot of my clients brought kids in. I always ask them, as your children have any injections? No way. I'm like, now this is making sense. So if we weren't injected, there is, I would say, a 90% more likelihood that we connect even stronger. But now I'm not saying if you haven't been injected, you won't, because you can connect and spirit can. But normally you find it's a lot darker energy. So I found that kids that have been injected have more of
arm speed
and negative entities or darker energies in the house. When they haven't been injected, it's more pure and loving, and the child is having conversations and laughing with the spirit that is with them.
Well, I can tell you, Jacob's an apparently with anything.
Speared.
Yeah. But interesting 100%. What we were on about with Jung earlier, where that programming again to tell your kid if they experience something like that you stop saying that, don't be saying that in front of your auntie or whatever, because they'll think you're nuts. It's already been embedded, hasn't it, in this entire system that if you talk like that, you're a bit crazy. I was always interested in that stuff, and I saw psychic actually, Matt, when I was young. I was only like 19. And she was really good. She told me loads of stuff that actually happened, very strange. And she said to me, when she was a kid, her mum was a psychic, and when she started seeing things, she told me her ability was she saw spirit from the side, and then it'd come in from the side and then come in front of her and tell her stuff. And she said a mum encouraged her rather than say, "You're talking nonsense." She said, and she saw them come in closer and closer and closer so she could communicate with them. I thought it was fascinating. And she told me stuff I can't even describe how she could have known. What
would you say I know what mine is, but I'll tell what mine is. Earliest occurrence that you can remember and it's not a game as in I was 2-year-old, and I don't mean it that way. I'm on about, can you remember what your earliest occurrence of something, I won't call it I suppose it's supernatural. I'll explain mine. I'll start us off. It was 1984, right? I had a dream, or nightmare, whatever you want to say, about the Bhopal disaster. And I even knew it was in India. I was telling my mate about it, and he looked at me like I was nuts, because obviously the news weren't like it were. We were on the bus going to school, and I said, I dreamed about this thing that were poisoning people, and it were in India. I didn't know it was Bhopal, blah, blah, blah. And I got home, and it were on the news. Because obviously all day at school, nobody had a mobile phone then, so we didn't know anything. But only when he got home and it were on the news. And I had a very vivid dream about the Bhopal disaster.
Wow. That's amazing.
That was December 1984, that. And I don't have many like that. I'm not saying I have loads, but I did have...
So can I ask you a question then? After that happened, what did you do with that?
Well, I don't know. I probably would just...
File it
away, because it probably freaked me out a little bit, because I would have been 14, something like that, 15. You don't know what to make of stuff like that, do you? Nobody, certainly nobody to talk about, talk to about it, other than ridicule.
Yeah. These to me are great opportunities, especially when you listen to, I worked with quite a few shamans, and one particular shaman that I worked with always said to me, that these synchronicities and these things that happen that can't be explained are a gateway or a doorway to be able to connect to our ancestors, or whatever you would call it, your angels, your guides. Doesn't really matter what it is, but it's an opportunity for us to open that doorway and walk into it and start to, so to me, in our head up here, we know, if we look under a scan, we will see there is I call it a muscle. It's a gland, and it's called the pineal gland. You all know this, right? And you all know that that those that know about this don't want us to use it. Therefore, they try everything. Yeah, there's so much they do to try and conceal it and put a wall around it. So, and when we open our pineal gland and we're free to be able to connect, then what the darkness does, what these idiots do, is then make a mockery of it to stop us. So when I say, when you say, oh, your mum or dad says, whoa, that's a vivid imagination, it's actually a way of stopping us from stepping into the psychic, because the psychic world is about the imagination. That's the key. You've got to open your mind, which is the word imagine, and you have to close your eyes to imagine it. So you close your eyes and you open your third eye up, and then this imagine, and now you have to battle with the mainstream thinking, which is the Jordan Petersons and the Paul McKennas, who are telling you that this is all psychobabble.
Mumbo jumbo. Yeah.
So now you've got this fear of being stupid, and then you have to break down the fear of, am I just a plonker? Is this just my imagination? Am I going to look stupid? Once you've broken that down, thrown it in the bin, and accepted that actually this is the way to the world of enlightenment, the awareness, then the whole new world starts, Dom and Chris. But you have to get through that. And the problem is 99%, as you know, are in that field of they're frightened of what anybody will say. So they follow each other with pots and pans and dance in hospitals and tell you all to take something in your arm. So there's only a small percentage in the world who actually can smell bullshit, true bullshit. And they know that if you're not frightened of saying it, you're certainly not frightened of what people think about you. If you start going to meditation and meditate and trying to find the nirvana, you're trying to find your connection. So I find that fascinating. So the first rule of thumb for everybody, if you say I can't connect, is because you're not allowing yourself to connect, because you're frightened. And that's the truth.
Look, Lorraine just said a good one in the chat there, Mark. She said, we're a very telepathic family, which doesn't surprise me. My granddaughter was drawing ambulances and a person in a hospital bed explaining as she went along. An hour later, here's the next part, I got a phone call to say my brother had been taken to hospital with a heart attack. Right.
That is so common, by the way, with people who have that psychic connection. And it's really sad, because it's normally a case where it's something traumatic or something bad is happening. And that's when we attune to it. And it goes back to the point in where I said, was it Jacob who just shouted out, just give me a sign? It's the same frequency. It's the same energy. So if somebody's going through pain and suffering and they're being rushed to hospital, it's the same thing as your son saying, give me a sign. So that is a higher vibration. That's not subtle. So the spirit world will give you an answer and will share something with you. If you don't mind, I'd like to share something which I think is really profound here, and it might help people along the journey, because synchronicities, they really have a purpose in life, and most people don't follow them. They don't dare look at them. They definitely 100% ignore them. But if you just listen to this one story, it's so profound that it might make you think a little bit in your future. I have said this story before, but you might not have heard it. But please bear with me, if it's okay with you, Dom.
Yeah, crack on, man. That's what we're here for.
Okay, cool. This story is about a lady who was in India, and she was in the outskirts of Delhi. And like everybody else, they have to wait for buses. Now, buses come like once every half hour, something like that, an hour. And she was waiting in the queue, and she was somewhat quite far back. And she's a white lady, and of course, lots of Indians are all there. So she's, different from everybody else. And when it got to her turn to get on the bus driver says, "You're not coming on." And she looked in the bus, and she could see there were still seats available. And she says, "But the seat's available." And he said, No, you're not coming on. Stop. You're not coming on. And she stopped herself, and she was miffed. She got off the bus. She was angry. She got off the bus. The bus went off, and the next bus came, and of course she got onto the bus, no problem. When she got to Delhi and she got off the bus, she sees a commotion at the front, and she walks to the commotion, and there's another bus there, and she realized it was the bus that she wasn't allowed to get on. The driver said, "You're not getting on." And halfway to Delhi, that bus let somebody on who killed all the white people on the bus.
Bloody hell. Wow.
So now just take a breath. And this is the best bit. How many of you would have pushed to get on that bus?
You'd have maybe questioned it and gone, why? Or something.
I would beg to differ. I would say most people would push to get on that bus and say the seats. What I'm trying to say is that most of us push, most of us fight, instead of thinking that our rejections are sometimes spirit protections. And that's something we need to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was going to say as well, Matt, I think these things happen to everybody. And if you're more interested, I was always interested in this stuff, so I'd be interested in spotting it. But I think it happens to everybody. Say the same experience happens to two people, and I tell someone, they go, "Oh, it's just a coincidence, nonsense," and it happens to them, and they think, "Oh, it's just another coincidence, nonsense," and they don't kind of roll along with it, do they? And they don't want to roll along with it, like you said, because they're scared.
Brilliant. It's a brilliant analogy. My understanding to that is that it's a different frequency completely, because your frequency is different from theirs. Your energy is different from theirs. Your awareness is different from theirs. And point in fact, how many people had the jib jab and how many people didn't. Therefore, you're always going to get people saying, "Oh, that's bullshit. Oh, that's ridiculous," until something happens to them. And then they want everybody else to know about it. And then everybody else in their circle then tells them that they're an idiot and that they're stupid, right? So the fact being is, yes, everybody receives divine intervention. Everybody receives signs every day, right? My point of reference is this, that there's a 3-point reference. The first one is, if I see a sign, I digest it. If I see 2 signs in a day, I kind of sit up and take notice. And if I see 3 signs exactly the same, I act upon them signs. It's a divine 3. So so it eliminates me jumping, saying straight away, I see a sign, "Oh, it's my soulmate, it's my soulmate, it's my soulmate," right? So I have to wait for the 3, because the 3, if I get 3 messages exactly the same, now I know that this is divine, and I act upon it, whether it's good or not so good, because a divine message can be a message that don't go down that street. It can happen in the moment, or it can be pre-prepared. So I've been down streets before in Huddersfield, and my gut instinct told me not to go. And most of us listen in the head, especially if we've had a drink, because that's what alcohol's good for. It stops us from communicating and connecting to the spirit world that gives us information. So I walked down the street, and next thing, there's 2 guys grabbed hold of me, ready to steal off me. But then out of an intervention, my friends in the nightclub just happened to show up at the same time, right at that time that I was going to get duffed. And what you doing with him? Leave him alone. Let him go. And then how many times has that happened to me? Loads. And if you've ever read my book as well, in my book, the first part of my book is about me walking on the street bouncing a ball. And as I'm bouncing the ball, I'm so interacted with the football match I'd just played in Greenhead Park that I didn't realise I'm basically halfway in the middle of the road, the first section of the road, and I realise as I'm bouncing it, I turn my head and I see a car coming, and it was just about to kill me. It was going to knock me over. Somebody grabbed me from the back and pulled me back, and the car sped past, beeped as it sped past. I should have been dead. And I turned out of shock to see who it was, and there was nobody there. And that's a true story.
All right, bloody hell.
And that story is the first part of my first book. And the question is, what do you do with that? If I'd have gone home and told my dad, I'd have got a slap for not looking across the road. He'd have hit me for not looking across the road.
And probably not even questioned that something had grabbed you.
Well, in 2015, I kept getting these white flashes. It was like somebody were punching in my eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it went on for about a month or something like that. And I had this picture. It were a guy that were going to hit me, right? At the gym, we were going to end up having a rumble. But that were all in my mind. Little did I know that what actually happened was I was driving up a road and a car came out of the drive and came in front of me so I sort of T-boned it, right? And it was the flash of the airbag coming out, hitting me in the face. Right, okay. So I got out of the car, right, ran round the other side of the car. That car was duffed in. Engine was still going and what have you. And he come out straight out of his drive, an old guy. I couldn't go open his door to get him out, so I went around the other side. I opened the door, and this voice came into my head saying, "I'm sorry." It keeled over on his steering wheel and come straight out of his drive.
So it was unconscious when you heard "I'm sorry."
I think he was just passing away then.
So you actually heard his spirit speak to you.
Yes.
You. So can I ask how you heard it?
Just in my head.
So it wasn't.
But it was a different voice.
It wasn't in your ear.
It wasn't.
Like sound in your ear. It came into your head.
Yes.
That's connecting to spirit. That's how spirit speaks to me. That's exactly how it works. So even at death, even when we transition, we turn into a beautiful soul, and we're apologizing for what's just happened. Do you know how beautiful that is?
Yeah.
That always happens. Always happens. It doesn't matter who my friend or client is who's moving into the light. No matter what they've done, they always turn to this beautiful, angelic, kind, loving soul. Even if they've done really bad things in their life, right at the end, something happens, and it's a transformation. It's a transition into their true self, which is, I say, pure love. And you can feel it. So there is no fear. There is no worry. It's just, like you say, a voice you hear. And then it doesn't feel fearful. It just feels tranquil. It just feels okay. And that's how I connect to spirit in this, or I did do. Not so much now, but I did do. But that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Just reminded me then, Matt, do you remember just after the jib jabs when people started going down, do you remember that period? There was a period of time where people were looking over the shoulder and spinning around like something was coming up behind them and then dropping dead. Do you remember that? Yeah. Whether unless it was a psyop.
I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, I remember seeing videos of it from all over the shop actually. Yeah.
There's many stories. I can't keep up with the chat, so I'm trying to put stuff on for people so we can read them out. If you keep putting them on there, I'll grab one or two of them. But this is live. This is
go through it after fatty and doing an extra or something.
Well, like I say, if you want to email them, we'll hopefully do a little bit of a live one and get a couple of people on.
And
there's a few people on
guys, following synchronicity leads you to enlightenment every time.
And a few people, I know, Chris. A few people are asking this. Yeah, this is live. It's the 31st of the 7th today.
Yeah, but
we're recording live. Yeah, I knew.
No, you know exactly what time you were going to say it. What time is it?
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I understand that because I thought at the beginning you were live on the first section, so I get it. I was like, is he live? Isn't he live? Is he live?
Yeah. The strange thing is that, I mean, me and Chris a few years ago, before the nonsense started in 2020, actually decided, because I was pretty high pressure, as you know, Mark, with business and stuff like that. We're pushing, as we rightly say, and you were like that as well, weren't you? When we were in business in the 90s and 2000s. Yeah, exactly. And now I like to allow things to materialize, or allow the universe to tell me what to do. And that's how it's like people talk about research, and I don't have subjects to research. They end up falling in my lap. Yeah, but that were a different club. Only joking. Right. So, Chris, you always have loads of good stories that you can tell, even just.
Well, sorry, I'm just trying to get my line right. I was going to say, do you remember over the last 4 years, a lot of people in the whatever world we're in at the moment were saying that they had a lot of synchronicities. How do you think, both of you, how do you think that tied into the nonsense over the last 4 years? Because you saw, because I was definitely experiencing a ramp up, and they come in little bursts of weird synchronicities. And then I'd be listening to a podcast, for instance, and people would be talking about it quite a lot, how they were having them. And I thought, bloody hell. Chris is not drinking. I've got a bottle of wine here. How do you think that tied into the last 4 years? The fact that people just randomly, people who probably never experienced it before, that's what I'm trying to say. I've always looked for things like that.
Well, I actually believe when I started doing my healing work, I was 38 years old, and there was an ever increase of people becoming more awake. And I used to go on radio shows, and people were like, to be fair, there were hundreds and hundreds of messages. There were more people on the shows. It was massive, and people were talking about stories which were like mind-blowing. I was getting clients coming in sharing stories which should just blow you away, and I noticed it was growing and growing and growing to a point where I actually went onto radio shows and said that we're just at the point where now true enlightenment is nearly going to affect everybody, because the ripple effect is so big. And it was at that point where the shit hit the fan, and all of this started to happen.
I think the procedure is probably, well, we've probably talked about this before, but was trying to stop that awakening thing.
Yeah, I also believe wholeheartedly that we talk about the Vatican, we talk about CERN, we talk about anybody who is interested in the truth of enlightenment, and that is the old ancient wisdom that has been stolen from humanity. And they know by way of frequency, they know by way of energy, and they can measure energy. People say that they're stupid, they don't really know what they're doing. We give them more credit than what you think. But sorry, guys, they've got the information, they've got the old text. They know the Vatican has more information about the Enlightenment and how we used to live and how we can do things, that there's many conversations with these beautiful souls that were enlightened 50, 100 years ago that said, and they even talk about this, where the angels come down and say that you do not know your power. And that's the truth, guys. We don't know our power.
Oh, yeah.
The reason why we don't know it is because it's been stolen, and we've been poisoned out of our power. So I truly believe, right, the frequencies, they know what we are and what frequency we are is a twofold. One, because they want to feed from negative energy, and two, they don't want us to reach enlightenment. And if that frequency starts going up, they will counteract and do something like a 9/11. And I think that's when it actually started, around about there, where I think that's when it started to, go a little bit. We should have gone higher and higher and higher. So we took a dip, and then we started climbing again. And as soon as we hit that point, then there was this nightmare.
Well, the worrying thing for these New World Order reprobates is that when they do something, that a compelling event, let's call it, like 9/11 or 2020, it does awaken more people. So the side effect of them doing these events and changes and resets and things means they do wake more people up.
Okay, so let me counter that. There's two forms of waking up, Dom. There's form of waking where you're in a flow and naturally high, and you get stronger and you're drawn onto your path, and then before you know it, you are finding where you are and what you're doing here and what your purpose is. What happens when trauma hits you? Some people do wake up, but they don't wake up in
it's
the
not
way.
fully, is it?
Well, you can say it's not fully, but it's trauma based.
Yes. Yeah. So do you think? I mean, somebody's put here AI is replicating possibly what might see.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
It might be a superficial awakening. That's what we're going to get to, as in the because you see a lot where I see people who wake up to say 2020, but then still go on about all the other nonsense that's going on like it's real.
But is that awakening, John?
No, well, it's partial.
Somebody else's information.
It's a realization. It's not an awakening.
It's a bit like
real.
Yeah.
Like I said to you before, Dom, I said to you, you said people are waking up. I'll say, yeah, wait till the next event comes. Let's see if they're awake to that. I guarantee you they're not. They're awake to something that somebody's told them. They're not awake to their own truth. They're awake to trauma. So they're angry and they're mad, but they don't know why they're angry and mad. They think, I'm angry and mad because of what they've done to me. But that doesn't get you anywhere. You're stuck. You can't go any further. So there's no form of enlightenment with that.
Yeah.
So that's how they get you again.
I mean, everything we do. Again, the Jerry information that Jerry is a fantastic window. I think this does sort of link together with that side of it. What Jerry talks about. The reason I love what Jerry's story is not just because it's a fantastic story. It's because the way he comes at it from a total clinical. I'll call it naive, but not naive as in I don't want to be disparaging there on Jerry. What I mean by that is he's not into the other stuff that we're into. He's just solely looking at those people and communicating with those voices as though they're coming in from somewhere, another dimension, universe, whatever. They're like game players. It's like a game. They're like game players, aren't they? But these voices that these things that you're saying, like the guy apologizing to me, that is a similar voice to what a schizophrenic might hear.
Yeah, again, it all depends on circumstance. It all depends where you are. It depends what you're eating, what you're drinking. It depends what frame of mind you're in. So, there's voices everywhere. There's your own voice. There's your own intuition voice that speaks to you every day. But most people decide to listen to the brain because they're fearful of their true self.
Are you familiar? Sorry, Mark. Are you familiar with FPV Angel's work?
No, I don't really follow many people because
nobody. He talks about the rainbows, as in rainbows. As when you see a rainbow, we always look at it from, and I might be bollocksing this up. Sorry, FPV. They're coming from the sky, and what their podcasts and explanations are, they come from underground. It's actually a circle. And they always appear in exactly the same place. And I know because me and Lorraine went a bit gaga on rainbows because every time I saw one, they appear in the same place. When you watch where they appear, they always appear in the same place.
What do you appear at the same place? Sorry, I don't get that.
So when a rainbow appears, anytime, it appears in the same place every time.
What you mean, like on Manchester Road? It's always in Manchester Road.
It's always exactly.
Well, I don't get it.
Well, neither do I. I don't know why.
Sorry, it always appears at the same place.
Right, right. So if a rainbow is going to appear, probably explain it better like this. If a rainbow is going to appear, they appear in the same place every time.
I've seen tons of rainbows that appear everywhere, all over the place.
Well, I'll let him explain it, or them explain it. Honestly, it's a phenomenon. Once you see it, you think. Yeah,
I think the point is, Matt, that they're supposed to just sporadically just turn up anywhere. But they appear in the same spot over and over again. I think that's
places. Anyway, I know you're not understanding what I'm on about, but anyway, forget it.
Maybe it's too highly intelligent for me, but I see rainbows all over the place.
You might do.
Small ones. When I get close to them, they're always in front of me, and then the closer I get to them, it's all.
We'll get FPV on, and he'll explain it. And have a listen to it because
maybe it's a good idea.
Yeah. Because like Jerry's story, right? the rainbow and all the other effects that FPV are all energetic, like the moon and things like this. They're all, obviously it's linked, isn't it? Because I mean, again, this comes back to the three questions: who are we? Why are we here? What's its purpose? Etc. Etc.
Yeah.
That is what these we're talking about tonight. Really, are these synchronicities are the signs of where we actually come from.
Mm-hmm. Not just where we come from, but who are we?
Yes.
What's our purpose? They're like three most powerful questions in the world, which nobody really looks at, and everybody's frightened of, because they all believe that they're not doing their purpose, because they look outside and see people who are famous, people who are amazing artists, and they feel like especially children now feel like that they have no purpose. So their purpose is to look on a black screen and see Kardashians, and that's the whole life. That's their purpose. So purpose is being changed now. It's being hijacked. The truth about purpose is that the little things, the small things, if you want to know what your purpose is, I bet you €1,000 you know your purpose. The problem is you believe your purpose isn't worth what other people's purposes are. So you will put your purpose somewhere on a back burner. You won't even look at it. You won't even think it's got any value, because you're so focused on somebody else who's your hero. And that's where we go wrong. So I'll give you a great example. I was at circles, and there were people all over the world that were psychics and healers. And I'm like, I'm in this field of work trying to become the best healer I can. I visited so many people around the world, tried to learn as much as I could. And there were times that I got so excited over somebody that I kept feeling down, because I was so excited at this person's gift that I thought to myself, I'm never going to get that gift. And I was right. You'll never get that gift, because that ain't your gift. And there was a day that I was trying to figure out what is my purpose? What are my gifts? And then I had to look in my mirror and say, well, I'm actually pretty good at feeling people. And I don't mean feeling in my hands. I mean,
careful.
Easy.
Right? Yeah, easy boy. Feeling somebody's emotions, right? So, like, I already was doing it. I was already talking to people and knowing how they were feeling and what they were going through. So I decided to follow that. My brain was saying, you're a faggot. What are you doing, you puffer? You know, you're like, as we are as kids, we caught, if we're emotional, if we go into our feelings, oh, you must be gay, right? And I used to be a hairdresser, so I was absolutely tarnished, right? So, but I had to look at myself and say, let me have a look at this gift. I don't care what people think. And I started following that gift of feeling people and understanding them. And that turned into, oh, Mark, you're actually psychic. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yes, you are, because you've just told me something that nobody knows. And so because I started speaking what I believed was something that I believed wasn't a gift, and I took the courage to follow that, I became a psychic in Spain. And I actually did really well, extremely well. And that then led me on to becoming a healer. That led me on to become an author. That led me on to become a crystal seller, an oil seller. And so everything led me exactly where I needed to go, because I had the confidence. And I shut out all the bullshit, thinking that everybody's better than me, and focused on what I know inside my heart might seem trivial, but it's actually quite powerful. And that is what leads you to your path and your true spiritual journey. And it leads you to who you are and why you're here.
So let's get some stories. You've got some stories, Mark. And I know Chris has, because he tells me about them all the time. He's probably dried up now. You might need to get a glass of wine down here, Chris, so he can... yeah, he's got
Cheers.
A glass of wine.
Salute.
Yes, salute.
Yeah.
Well, we had some weird ones with Sheep Farm, actually, when we first started. Going back to Synchronicities. I mean, one of the ones I remember the most, but there was about 3 or 4 around it. We think we've talked about before. I think Matt Landman was one. And it often occurred to around me listening to something in my shed when I'm doing my sculptures, talking to Dom about it. And then he'd go, I've just got an email.
It's in the shed, Chris. It's a 300-acre farm.
Mine's 400 acres.
Yeah. Well, my dad's telly is bigger than Mr. T's. Yeah. Sorry, Chris. Go on.
Well, what was I on about?
You were about when we started up the Synchronicities. I think we were talking about John Hamer, weren't you?
Yeah, with John Hamer. But there was a few, because there was, I remember we spoke to Matt Landman, we talked about him. And then there was Alana Freeman, I think we talked about her, and then she contacted you, or someone got, I can't remember. But John Hamer was the weirdest one, because, and we just had him on last week, we were talking about something, and we ended up talking about the Titanic. And I said, I've got a book on the Titanic. I don't know why we were talking about the Titanic. And I picked the book up off the shelf. And Dom said, he said, who's wrote it? I said, a guy called John Hamer. He said, he's from Huddersfield. We got talking about him. And he's like, he's written this, this, and this, and this. And I said, I bought this book a while ago. I'm still yet to read it. I think I bought it to read on holiday. Good old Titanic conspiracy book. And then I think it was that day he emailed. It was
the day. It was that night.
It was that night.
What did I say about in the day you get 3?
Yeah. It'd be funny. I've never thought about it like that before, Matt, but it'd be funny to see what happens around that kind of experience, because I didn't really think of it in 3s or anything. It just happened. But my point is, when we first started Sheep Farm, I swear it happened 3 or 4 times where we'd talk about someone and then they get in touch with us and then we'd end up interviewing them. Very strange indeed.
I call it very normal.
Yeah.
It's not,
Nothing strange about it, mate.
Beautiful. Yeah.
By saying that, your program, you need to.
Oh, my program in it there, Matt. I've been. I've always thought in this kind of way. Yeah, I shouldn't use that word.
No, words are important though, eh? That now I'm starting.
Well, no, I'm knocking myself back, aren't I, by using.
You are exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's exactly. I'm not myself. I do it every day. My partner says, "Why'd you speak bad of yourself?" I'm a freaking idiot.
You leave it to Dom.
What do you say that for?
Leave it to Dom. He'll do it for you.
Going back to what you were saying before, Mark, about heroes, we all do that as well. We look at someone like you say, like a TV personality. I can never be as good as that. I make sculptures. There's sculptors out there who are, I was going to say better, but different to me, or better, or whatever. But I don't ever compare myself to them, because there's a niche market of people that like mine. So I don't need to, and I don't care. I used to when I was younger, but I've got to an age now where I don't care. I just, people who like them will like them, and that's it. It no longer bothers me whatsoever. But what I was going to say is, and this is a funny one actually. My missus, it's a strangish one, but again, I don't know what happened around that time, because I didn't really think about it like that. But I had an alarm on my phone, for instance. I think it was Star Wars or something. And my missus had Emily, the French film. That's her favourite film. And I remember I put it on her phone. And I had a film theme tune. I think it was Star Wars. And in King's Cross Station in London, there's and we had these for like 6 months. So in the morning, hers would go off, then mine would go off, and you'd hear these 2 tunes every morning. In King's Cross Station in London, my missus was going to London, there's a piano, and then there's another piano. And they're there just so people can get on them and start tinkling. And she rang me as she walked through, because she walked past one piano and it was playing Amelie, her tune. And she walked past the other and it was playing Star Wars or Indiana Jones. I can't remember which one it was. They were playing that on the next one a second later. So she heard those 2 tunes in a space of about 3 minutes.
Can I intervene here? Right. Yeah. What did you do with that?
Nothing. No, nothing. That's
you understand what I'm trying to tell everybody?
Yeah. You need to look around what's going on around at the same time.
Because 99% of the spirit world now are like, I freaking told you.
How much more obviously needed to make it?
What was that? The guy who was drowning, and a helicopter comes and said, no, he looks up as he's drowning, and he asked for God to help him. That joke.
Yeah. And the helicopter comes. So he says, "Not you. I'm waiting for God."
Boat comes, helicopter, and then he drowns. And then when he gets to heaven, he says, "Why didn't you save me?" He said, "I sent a helicopter, a boat, to save you." This is exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. So what you received there, Chris, was a blatant, obvious message that you either ignore or you follow through. And by following through, what I did at 38 years old was follow through. That's the only difference. I followed through.
You can get special underpants for that.
And exactly. and it flows, mate.
Yeah.
Another one, Matt. This is another one I've had since I was a kid, and it's an odd one because I've got a friend called Adam, right? And Adam, Dom, used to, and I've been out of touch with him for years. We got on really well when we were kids. And anyway, long story short, I always used to have dreams about him, and he'd show up, right? And one of them was so poignant. And we're going back to when I was like 17 here, and I'd not seen him for 2 or 3 years. And I had this dream, because we were knocked around when we were little kids. I had this dream, and it was so poignant. He walked into the house where me and Dom grew up, and in this dream, he was looking through a wall, a hole in a wall, and he's like, "Chris, what you doing? What you doing?" And I went over and we started talking. And I said to my mum the next day, I said, "I've had the weirdest," and this used to happen a lot, but this was more poignant for some reason. I said, "I had this weirdest dream about Adam. I'm sure I'm going to see him. I know I am. I'm going to see him." And I remember on the Friday, I went out with some beers in Halifax with 2 of my mates. And I got a bit drunk, and I was telling them, I said, "I had this dream about this mate of mine. I'm going to see him. I know I am." And they were like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Because you're fucking lunatic," as usual, which is what I always used to get. Anyway, the next morning, I've got somewhat of a hangover, and I'm sat in the living room on that poof that was near the TV factory, remember?
That what?
Like a little poof, a little footrest,
Yeah.
Is that what they're called? That's what my mum used to call it. I don't know if that was right. And I was sat there, Matt, and Adam knew the family so well, he didn't knock on the door. He just walked in. He put his head, this was the weirder bit, he put his head through the partition, which was exactly what I saw in the dream. And he went, "All right, Chris." And I went, Mum, I told you I was going to see him. I told her. And she came in and she went, "Oh, you're so stupid. What are you talking about?" I said, "I told you yesterday I was going to see him." And he's just turned up. I've not seen him for 2 years.
And Chris, what happened?
Nothing. I didn't do anything. I think that will be a recurring theme throughout this conversation.
I think it's a recurring theme, Chris. Yeah.
Can I just
to heaven? Guess what's gonna happen?
Yeah. I kept sending him. What did you do? He didn't do anything.
Freaking hair out. Got no hair left.
It's happened, and I told him this, and it happened numerous times over the years. But this is what I'll finish on. Me and my missus were in Spain, where a dad rents a villa out every year, and we were there, and I had a dream about him. And I've told Lou all this background to this story. She's quite into this kind of discussion. And I said, I had a dream about my friend Adam. And I said, I always see him. There's no way I'm going to see him in Spain. No way. That's just, if I do, that's crazy. So I wanted to tell my wife so that, there was evidence if I did. 5 minutes went by, right? Her sister shouts up, "Christian, who's Adam Hurst? He's put a message on Facebook."
Yeah.
And what it was, me and him used to go to Sub Aqua Club and go swimming underwater.
Right.
Like that. Did you do that, Chris?
What? We used to no, there's a point to that. We used to go underwater and blow bubble rings, right? When we were in Spain, I was showing my nephew bubble rings underwater, where you can blow like a smoke ring underwater. Adam had seen it.
Through your nostrils.
Adam had seen it and messaged, "Oh, Chris, I remember when we used to do that at Sub Aqua."
Wow.
And I've not heard from him or spoke to him for about a year or so, 2 years.
What did you do with that?
Nothing.
So point being that all these reoccurring things that you've been through, I would also say that everybody who's watching today has had the same thing happen to them.
Yeah, I would agree.
What you've said is no different from Dom's experience and mine. I think we all have an equal experiences.
I agree.
What I find fascinating is when you realize this, what we've done is hypnotized ourselves to believe that something is so obvious that we're saying it's not. Mm. Now, what we've just been through in 4 years, that's something so obvious, and we just do nothing about it.
Yeah.
So the point being is that hypnotism, where you've got somebody like Paul McKenna trying to hypnotize a group of 50 people, he'll quickly sit down 3 of them because he can't hypnotize. There's just no way he can hypnotize them. You know this, right, about hypnotists. They just can't hypnotize some people. So my feeling is on the same line is that some people really struggle to connect to the spirit world, right? Even though they're being given the signs, there's something that stops them. So it's kind of the reverse. They're stopped from actually attuning, and some people can actually attune. But the point being, the frustration for me is that when I see somebody like you who's gone through all of these experiences and laughed it off as a Yorkshire lad and said,
to be fair, Matt, I didn't laugh them off. I'm probably
what
exaggerating.
did you do with them?
I didn't do anything with them. Yes, but I've always been very aware of dreams and things like this. But I will be honest, I've not done anything with them. But I have been very aware of them, and I've always thought they were special.
Right,
but
so
I didn't know in what way.
The point being is the whole point to this is synchronicity is Spirit's helping hand. The helping hand is basically to say, I'm here. I can give you what you want. I can help you along your journey. We want you to know we're here. We want you to know you're safe. That is part and parcel of they want you to connect and speak to them like you've got a telephone line and you want to just ring up your mum, say, wouldn't it be nice to be able to just say, Dad, how you doing? And your dad's saying, I'm absolutely fine. Imagine that. Imagine if you could do that. People can, by the way. And a lot of people back then were locked up for it.
Yeah.
Right. They were locked up for being intuitive, connected.
Well, also as well, Matt, people who had these experiences, they were often the elders in villages, and the same people now would be considered schizophrenic and locked up and drugged out of their mind.
But you know the strange thing about it, I would if I was to write a book, I believe that most of these people, like there's two things that are happening at any given moment within the conscious spacesuit. The consciousness that you are is of light and divine kindness, caring, loving, sharing. That's the consciousness that you are. I don't believe we're all made in God's image. I don't believe it at all. And I've come to not believe that because there are pedophiles out there that would rape every day and they can't stop being that way because they're a different consciousness. They come from a different part of the universe. And I've come to understand this. Therefore, all things equal, yin and yang, light and dark, we choose what we want to take. So we choose light, we choose love. We don't choose pain and suffering. We don't feed from hating people and doing bad things. But the spacesuits that we're in, these people that we laughed at and that we thought sometimes were absolutely incredible and fascinating. And then we come to realize that, hang on a minute, these people were deceivers. They were ultra psychic. They were ultra connected to this world they come from. And where they come from is a different part of the cosmos. And that energy is about hurt, cheating, lying, stealing, robbing, deceiving. That's their frequency and energy. So they feed and they connect to that. And they have a strong psychic connection to that. And that's why they can deceive us all the time. And that's the difference between them and us. And that's my theory behind this. So when you see a politician, you think, oh, he's like me, but he's not like me. No, he's not like you and he's not like you. He comes from a different place. He's got a spacesuit like you, but he ain't like you at all. What he wants is completely different from what you want. You can say there's good and bad people, and that's the way it is, and it's free will, and we all come from the same place. But I'm sorry, that's not true. That is not. It makes no sense at all.
No.
But I wouldn't consider hurting a child ever. Why is it that this man next to me would consider hurting anybody and pushing the button and killing anybody and wouldn't think twice about it and actually grow and get more powerful? Because he is psychically attuned. He knows exactly, the stupid, these people, they don't know what they're doing. I tell you what, they're more attuned than you and I. They're more connected to their home world, which is a world of darkness and feeding and destruction. And we should be equally connected to our family in the spirit world that helps us fight the darkness. And that's the truth. And
also, Matt, not only are they doing all those psychotic tendencies you talked about, they're propagandizing and convincing everyone else to follow it, that it's righteous, it's right to, bomb another country or
look
kill.
At the Olympics. That's just said it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I think we're diverting. But the truth.
Well, it's all connected, though, Mark, isn't it?
Everything is connected, Don. Everything is connected.
And I agree with you. I mean, if you think about what you're just talking about there's roughly a similar amount of people who are 360 who will look at this. I'm not saying anybody understands stuff or have been through what you've been through or anybody in the chat or anybody else, but we are open to the suggestion. Yeah. Like with Jerry's story, for instance, most people listen to that and think it's just wacky. But with people like us, it resonates with us somewhere. It makes sense. With things like I've got to use FPV's research and as well. you know, or it resonates. You know, there's something that resonates with us.
Well, when we found the Jerry thing fight, there were no. Oh, we found this. You know, guy talking about this stuff. How wacky is that? Me and him were so excited because it was just so interesting.
I was with you.
Yeah. It was so exciting to hear that version. I'd never heard a version of explaining schizophrenia like that ever. And the amount of comments and discussion we got chatting about that as well was just amazing, wasn't it? Because I'd recommend if anyone hadn't heard that, you can go to Sheep Farm and
the first one.
You can find Jerry Majinski anywhere. Actually, he does loads of shows. Actually, doesn't he?
It's mind blowing, and likewise what Mark's talking about, and all the other stuff that we discuss. The research we do say on Tony Blair, that's interesting, right? But the core stuff is really, again, the three questions: who are we? What's his purpose? Where we come from? They're the only questions we should ever be taught at school. There's no other questions, but they don't want to tell us the answer, so they're never going to teach us that. Either. But anyways,
and here's a good one, Dom. Right? If you had a company and you were injecting people, right, vitamin C, and say one person dropped down dead, right, and it was because of the vitamin C, right, something that was reaction. How would you feel? Would you continue with that business and carry on? Okay, so a guy called Tony Blair tells a load of guys to press buttons and kill basically hundreds of thousands of people, and then stands in front of a camera and continues doing his work, smiling, saying it's the best thing we did. I don't apologize for it. It's like, you can't tell me that what's inside that body, that consciousness, is in the image of God or the image of me.
Oh, human. Yeah. It's funny, another synchronicity. I was just going to bring him up and say exactly what you just said.
Two more than it is.
But I was actually going to say, as an example, Tony Blair, how does that human being therefore then go on to eat his meals with his family, sleep, wake up, carry on with his day when he's murdered 1 million people?
Because of what I've just said. Yeah. He feeds from the energy of hate, death, fear, destruction. That is his norm. That's his norm. So you're scratching your head saying, how can this guy still live and still smile? Because of what I've said.
Some of the odd research you did, Mark, was what came out of some of the Meet the Plumbers research was how many stars, politicians are distantly related to serial killers.
Well,
yeah. So Kevin Bacon, for instance, is related to serial killer. The first guy that supposedly went into outer space, William Shepard. Anyway, he was related to John Wayne Gacy, I think it was. And so a lot of these stars are related to hitmen and assassins and serial killers. So maybe that line runs thick, and they're all got royal line lineage as well. Maybe that line runs thick through these, and they're the spin-offs of these serial killers and Jimmy Saviles of this world.
Well, I would hazard a guess. I don't believe the serial killer story was told to us in the 90s, wasn't it? Really, heavily. I mean, if you read what's his name, Program to Kill by what's his name,
Dave McGowan.
He explains a serial killer story. They're all part of these families and the same kind of folk. The serial killer story is to terrorize humanity, more of like what Matt was saying, just to terrorize, scare the shit out of people. I mean, Yorkshire Ripper, they had lockdowns, for crying out loud, in Leeds for the Yorkshire Ripper when he was on the prowl. I mean, when you think of it now, Matt, doesn't it all seem like a bit of a shenanigans, that whole Yorkshire Ripper story?
Everything that we've been told, I struggle to believe anything.
I
honestly, people telling me history, I'm like, I'm nodding my head, but I'm like, I
struggle.
I had a conversation today about those poor girls that were killed in Southport this week with our Jacob, actually, and it would say, I said, the riots that are caused after though. All of it's part of some kind of plan to split the population from fighting Islam. And he said not everything is orchestrated. I said no. He doesn't mean to say that he was MK Ultra and he went into that dance club and did that. But they know if they do certain things that somewhere in the country something's going to happen. And also you've got people like Tommy Robinson, who's not even called Tommy Robinson. he's got a Jewish sounding name. His surname's Yakult Lennon.
Yeah,
not Yakult, but that's a yogurt. But you know what I mean. I forget what it's called now. But yeah,
the other day, and I said, Nico, just because somebody's saying the right words sometimes,
yeah, exactly,
them a right person. Look,
I think
and he said, yeah, I agree, you're right. I wouldn't have him in my house. And sorry, guys, he might say the right thing, but they're anyway.
Yeah, Tommy Robinson's real name, by the way, is Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon. So he's even got a pseudonym to, yeah.
You have to be suspicious of anyone who's got a pseudonym, unless it's an author's name. You know,
says everything. But anyway, is it okay? We get back to.
Yeah, come on, let's get back. We will go on a couple of tangents. Yeah, we've been firing for an hour and 20, so I'm not in any rush to go anywhere. I don't think you are, Chris, are you?
Not massively.
So one of the things, guys, that I recommend is opening the pineal gland and being aware of another world that is here to help us. And this is my work, a world where you can sit down in front of me 20 years ago and think, I smell bullshit. And after an hour, you get up and you scratch your head and think, how did he know that? And why do I feel the way I do after a healing session? I feel amazing. And you can sometimes change people's perceptions, and then they can walk out of the door and then they can ring you up 5 minutes later and say, Mark, I know I don't believe in any of this bullshit that you did. I came for my wife, but why is it that I walked through the streets of Mias Pueblo and decided to sit down and have a coffee? You talked to me about my dad and you said my dad was going to give me a sign. I sat down, as I was having a coffee, I heard a bird, which was a parrot, and it went, like a parrot, loud parrot, and he started crying, and I'm like, where's this going? And he said, my dad's nickname was Parrot. So my point being is that I might be seen as a charlatan, a fake, a liar, a deceiver, but I've seen stuff and I know who I am, and I sleep well on a night, and I do many things for money because I have a mortgage. And we are always attacked because people are looking for a way to attack people who are good and kind. So if you are on a path and you start to become more awake and aware, please be aware that the darkness will attack you. And they will attack you in ways that's going to make you feel bad. They're gonna make you feel stupid. They're gonna make you feel as if you're a con artist. They're gonna make you. They're going to rip you apart, and you've got to be strong, and you've got to not let that affect you. And once that doesn't affect you, then darkness stops. So it's almost a test. It's like if you move to another country, the chances are you're going to leave within 3 years. That is 99% of people. Only 1% stay in that place. Why? Because they are tested. For whatever reason, they're tested, and then they leave, and then they run back home. And that is a fact. Only 1% stay when they go somewhere. That's the same, but in a spiritual sense. We're attacked because they're going to stop us, because they know that your power, your light is so powerful that they're frightened. They don't want that light, because your light changes the world. Once your light affects somebody else, it gets them thinking, and that thought becomes a process, and that process then connects to the spirit or the consciousness, and then they light up. So one flame lights another flame lights another. They will stop you, and they will mock and ridicule you through weak people, through people that will mock you and laugh. You have to stand strong and say to yourself, this is showing me my way. So it's kind of an honor. It's a badge of honor. It's a way that you know you're doing the right thing. Now, I'll give you a great example, guys. Dom and Chris has been doing some great work. I mean, seriously great work. This week, I said they were challenged, but they weren't, because not Dom said this is a storm in a teacup. To anybody else, they could have been shit scared because a big name has gone and said something about them, but they stood strong. They knew their truth, and it didn't affect them. And because of that, nothing happened. My point being, Dom, Nothing ever really happened to me because I didn't let it affect me. Therefore, please never allow somebody to make you feel bad on your journey, no matter what you feel. And whatever comes your way, synchronicities, signs, stories, within a story, you read something, you're hearing somebody next to you talk about something, and you go, oh my God, that's for me. Follow it. Follow it. Follow everything. As soon as you start following, this is what happens. Spirit goes, hey, Dom's ready. Up, Chris is ready. Or Sam's ready. And once
Sam Carnell's been ready since you were born.
Yeah. Once they know you're ready, they will bombard you with stuff. When the pupil's ready, the teacher appears. Synchronicities come so fast, and it's like a roller coaster of the most beautiful synchronicities. I'll tell you this as a fact, guys. When I first started this work, I used to come home, and when I was married to Susie, she said, how's your day been? And I go, honestly, I can't even explain. Everything that you've said today, both of you, right, had happened to me on a daily basis for 12 years. So when somebody says to me, this is bullshit, I'm like, yeah, all right, pal. And I know you can't tell me it isn't, because I've seen too many things. I've seen the strangest of things happen. I've seen my clients, what they've been through. Yeah, maybe you haven't, but maybe it's because you're asleep.
I will say, Mark, these kind of things, because I used to have a lot of them when I was younger in dreams and stuff, and I'd tell Dom about them, but then I'd tell other people and you get a bit mocked or whatever. But then as well, that thing you were on about earlier, with age, I don't care anymore. With age, I don't care. I've got no ego in it. Could not give a flying fook what anyone thinks about what me and Dom do. Don't care. We just do what we do. But I think if it had happened, what we're doing now, even with Sheep Farm, if it happened when I was younger, I think I'd have took things a bit differently. I think as we've got older, we're not fazed by anyone or anything anymore. I don't think.
Doesn't that tell you that we should be teaching our children that very most important?
Yeah, I do. I will. Yeah. But also as well, when these things happen, I'm very open about, like, I'll go to work, I work in a kitchen, I'll talk to people at work about it and see if they're interested. When I was younger, I'd keep it all to myself, like a little horrible, mysterious secret. But whereas now I discuss it with everyone else, and then they start telling you their synchronicities and things that have happened to them. And they go, oh my God, it's really weird. I'll give you an example. I said it to a fellow I work with, and he said, I had one, I had one. He was thinking about, of all things, an actor in Coronation Street, right, that he knew when he was younger. And he Googled them. And he said, I Googled them because I thought, yeah, I wonder what happened to that actor.
How did he Google him again, Chris?
Like this. And they died that day. And he thought about them to the point where he said, I've not thought about them for 20 years. I Googled this. I can't remember who it was because I don't watch Coronation Street. He Googled them and they died that day. But without me discussing it with him, he probably... I must not say he wouldn't have noticed, but getting the conversation going made him more aware of what had happened about that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'll just finish off on this note, and then whatever you want to talk about, this is a true story. It's in my book. I don't push my books ever. If you've noticed, I've never pushed them. First time I've put my books behind me.
You should push them.
Right,
you should do.
I'm not that bothered, to be fair, and the right people will get them. I'm not pushing, but
it is part of what we're on about, where you're not bothered. But like I said, for some reason, and me and Dom talk about this sometimes, if they want us in a basement whipping ourselves with nettles, sleeping in his own shit for some reason. No, it's a very strange phenomenon, isn't it?
I sell this book because it's a good fly squatter, and it's good, a dodgy leg.
Like on your table. But
anyway,
there you go, Mark. Again, taking piss out yourself.
Yeah, I know.
That's my job.
We're Yorkshire.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
We go crazy. But this point is, I was invited by two psychologists to go and work in Barcelona, and
Barcelona.
So I went into their practice, and they've got a room ready for me. It's just a square room with a table at the end and some chairs. Okay, so there's a healing bed, or I call it a massage bed there, where my clients would lie down, and then there's a place where I sit, and the client is opposite me. So basically, what I used to do is I used to read for their clients, and what that meant was they got stuck with their client. They didn't know where to go, what to do. They'd done as much as they could with their client and they were stuck. So they thought an idea was to bring a psychic and to see if they can maybe find something that they've not been able to find. Now, this is high-end stuff. We're talking like €1,000 for a session. So this was high-end clients, right? So I was working with people who were like royalty and singers and actors, in Spain, in Barcelona. So as I'm sat there, I'm reading for people and the woman next to me is translating, right? So they don't speak English. I don't speak Spanish very well, but I'm doing this. So 10 o'clock client came, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, comes 3 o'clock, right? My 3 o'clock appointment had just walked out of the door, so it's 4 o'clock now. The lady walks in, the psychiatrist. She said, "Look, Mark, your 5 o'clock appointment hasn't turned up. I've got a book here, and I've got 30 people wanting a reading with you, but for some reason, I'm not sure. What do you think?" And I said, "Just leave it. Let's just leave it. Let's not book anybody in." And she says, "I thought the same thing." I went, "Okay, cool." So I'm on with my next client. So the 4 o'clock client left. It's now 5 o'clock. She walks in with a red face, right? She's bright red. This is a psychologist, by the way. Bright red face. She says, and she speaks good English. She says, "Mark," she says, "I don't think you're going to believe this." And I'm in shock. I'm like, "Go on." She said, I knew a man a long time ago who was also a very intelligent psychologist, and he also was a philologist or whatever they call it, just somebody who studied, really intelligent, very famous. But he ended up going cuckoo, crazy, because of his intelligence. You know that some people who are so intelligent can go a little bit like too much. You know? There was a knock on my door. He knocks on the door. He's inside saying, "I needed to come and somebody's here who can help me. I know somebody's here who can help me." And she said, "Is it you?" And I said, "I don't know, but if you want to bring him in, bring him in." So the guy escaped a hospital, guarded hospital. Okay. So the guy sits down. I'm now communicating as I told everybody to leave, and I made him sit down. He's in his 70s, and now I'm realizing that this guy, I'm speaking, he kept interrupting. I said, "Stop talking," and he said, I said, "Stop talking. I'm not speaking to you," right? And he kept quiet, and then he butt in again. I said, "Please stop talking. I'm not speaking to you," because I was speaking to his consciousness. His brain was trying to kick in, but I was speaking to his consciousness. And I realized that his consciousness was stuck. So when I'd finished, we moved him over to the bed, right? Lay him down, and then I start a healing session. I go into deep shamanic work. And I found myself being pulled down into darkness. And while I was in that darkness with my eyes closed, my consciousness met him and guided him back up. So he's now inside, he's now back. He's no longer in darkness, he's back. I, for some reason, is still in a place of, I don't know where I was, but I knew I pulled him back up, but I was still unsure where I was. So I went and sat down. I just walked over and sat down and tried to get myself back again, okay? So I don't know how long it took. It could have been 10, 15, 20 minutes, I don't know, because I wasn't in my body. And I was trying to get myself back because this was something new to me. I found myself waking up. The man sat up, laughing and talking with the psychologist. I shouted out, "Leave this room," because I realized I hadn't finished with him. The psychologist screamed, ran out. I walked over to him, laid him back down, and did 20 more minutes healing till I was happy. Then the day went, everybody went. We went to a place called Whispers, Chinese Whispers, something like that. It was a Chinese restaurant. There was 10 of us sat around a table. She turned, this psychologist turned to everybody and said, the strangest of things happened tonight, and I need to tell everybody. So she's telling me, and I'm listening to the story. She says, it was 5 o'clock, and Mark, I always go into the room at the hour to tell Mark it's over. So because he didn't have a clock. So I opened the door, I had a look around, and there was nobody there. So I went over to this guy, the friend of hers. He opened his eyes, and she says, I promise you this, it was like speaking to him again 30 years ago. It was like we actually chatted for 10 or 15 minutes, and he was back again. And she said, then the next thing what happened is I heard this, leave the room. She said, I turned round, and Mark was in the room. And she said, I came into that room and nobody was there. So she said this, not me. I disappeared at that moment and reappeared because I went down into the darkness. Now, subsequently, I know of this phenomena because I worked with a shaman who worked with dark energy. And when the lights went off, he would disappear and come back again. And you could see silhouette. It wasn't like pitch black. And this happened often. And so it's a phenomena that happens. But my understanding about it is that when you look at somebody, you see them, but sometimes they can vibrate out of a frequency that they're not there. Have you ever played a game of hide and seek and went like that, and somebody walked past and like, they didn't see me. They never even saw me. And you get excited, right? You get excited because they didn't see you. Yeah. We played outings. It's the same frequency that we can vibrate out of frequency. So my point being to the story, the synchronicity of him ending up there from a hospital, getting to the actual place, saying there's somebody here that can help me, for him to lie down, have a healing session, and then to be able to come back to life again and be the young self for how long, I don't know. But I thought that story was worth writing about.
So it was a point. It was a point when you got up and went to the chair that you disappeared to that psych.
She came in the room. There's a table and chairs. That's it. And she looked in the room for me to tell me, and nobody was there. So I don't believe I vanished. I just believe that the work that I did, that I was vibrating at a different frequency.
Right.
Sometimes we don't see.
Well, it's an ancient Japanese ninja culture, if you like, isn't it? That they can.
I don't know, but that's a true story, and that came out of one of the top psychologists in Barcelona, and she tells that story, and I wrote it in my book. Wow. I've got tons of stories like that, tons, but it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. What the point being is, we can do anything.
Yeah. Do you know what the guy's outcome was, Matt?
Pardon?
The fella, do you know what his outcome was? Did he?
No, I didn't ask, but I mean, I could ring and ask.
Well, no, there's a point where it's not.
My understanding a lot of the times is when it's almost like a point where you can bring somebody back and they fall back into the same place, and it often happens. It's same with dementia. It's same with Alzheimer's. People came to me with their partners and said, he's just lost. I give him a healing session, and then they cry because he's back again. So his consciousness is gone, and then it comes back. Like I can put my hands over somebody and try and bring that consciousness back because it's in the spirit world, and then it comes back, and I'll go, he's back. And then they'll look at each other, and then they'll smile, and then they'll hug each other and cry and chat. And then it might last for 15 minutes. It might last for 2 hours. It might last for a day, but then they revert back. It
sounds like that film Awakenings.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. But again, that could tap into the pineal gland being.
I think every film has a true story behind it. All these blockbusters have real truth behind it, and whether they manipulate it, that's what I believe.
The lies are in the news. The truth is in the films.
Yeah. Wow. I see. GT 380 man is actually Mike Eden. He's in disguise.
Hello, Dr. Mike Eden. I'll have to get him on again. It was a great chat with him, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hello, Mike Eden.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Any questions?
Some good questions. But while we're wrapping up, we're on an hour 39. If there are any questions you want to ask Mark while we're on this subject, but I think a real awakening is a 360-degree awakening. I remember I mentioned these stories to you, Mark, a few weeks ago, where this was back in the 90s. I've been clubbing and whatnot, and you start thinking you're awakening, but yeah. Anyway, I went to this house that were doing meditation sessions in Tomberton, which is near Halifax, which is known for its, I call it far out at the time, mindset of that, but it's quite an odd place, isn't it? Because I mean, some people in the chat will know Tomberton.
There's some energy.
Yeah, it's something there. Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the sightings that were
Exactly.
the triangles that were flying over the Tomberton Triangle, it was called, weren't it? That area. But there's a lot of stones there as well, and the guide stones and things like that there on the tops.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Halstead said he's been up there doing that. But I went to a meditation session, and there were a few of us, and they were doing a healing session, and they said if you want to talk about anybody you want to heal, and I'd not thought of it up to that point, you know, and there were some interesting things to come out of that. So I did one on this guy that I knew who had blood cancer, right? I didn't go into it thinking of that because I didn't know what the session were going to be about. So, but it was a really deep meditation session. Anyway, I hadn't seen him for a few weeks, and I saw him the next week after I'd been around a week, and he said, "Dom, I've been given all clear." and you know when when you feel I'm feeling weird now, you know. It was quite an emotional thing. Now, people would put that down to coincidence, but there's too many things happening for it to be coincidence, really. Anyway.
I would say there is no coincidence as far.
Exactly, yes, yeah. But, yeah, go on, sorry, Mark.
No. I mean, this absolutely beautiful, and it's absolutely 100% true. And what you did there was called absent healing. And sometimes we can tap into something beyond words, and you just really can't explain it. But the outcome is phenomenal, and you just scratch your head, and you'll convince yourself that want me is bullshit. But again, what did you do with it?
Well, obviously nothing. No, in fairness, I have. If you think about it, because yes. I've opened the clinic, I've opened, you know.
But actually, I would actually say that you probably did that because of the challenge that you went through.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that a lot of the times we're challenged and we're brought to a certain place, but normally the beautiful light things and the miracles, we just push aside. And we just disregard them as if they're nothing. Yes. But heavier things like, oh shit, I had this disease and I got myself through it, and now I'm doing this. That's the easy part, because that's the only real explanation you have when it comes to doing something amazing after a bad thing happens, right? It's kind of part of the path. The beautiful things, like you've just said, that everybody does every day without even realizing. And every night we could go into nighttime, because when we sleep, our consciousness leaves the body and heals people everywhere.
So here's a question, Mark, from Nicole Mark.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on lucid dreams? I had one 3 years ago. The colours were amazing. Can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. So colours are phenomenal, because when you leave your state, as you leave your state, you start to see things that you wouldn't normally see in our world. So if you connect to the spirit world and you go into that realm, you sometimes, or if you're having a healing session, you start to see colors that you can't describe, that you can't write them down. You can't say the blue, you can't say the purple. They're more than colors. And then colors are frequencies. And then frequency has messages. So there's messages in frequencies, in shapes and colors. And that's why we talk about symbols. That's why we talk about frequency, sound. We talk about, because you've seen them drums where sound goes on and we play a frequency and they have patterns, all connected. All of this is connected, but they don't give us the full truth. We just get snippets from here and there. Imagine if we had all the truth. Imagine if all the truth was there given to you. Imagine what you...
Do you know what, Mark? Some of these evil bastards, these people know the truth.
That's exactly...
They know that if they told people the truth, no one would live in fear ever again.
Yeah, and we would be protected, and we would know how to navigate through this world, and the trauma and all the what ifs would all disappear, and things when things make sense, you feel better. I kind of like, if you've ever moved somewhere or you've ever driven somewhere, and you find that you're on empty. Right, you're on empty, and it's middle of the night, and you know you have to go somewhere. You need to find a gas station. You're panicking. You know that fear of panic, right? And then you find a gas station. You feel okay, right? The next night you're on empty again, but you know where the gas station is, so you don't have no fear. Does anybody understand that?
Yeah. Through the 4 years of nonsense. I mean, even though me and Dom were, and probably Self were, and probably everyone listening, a lot of people listening, we're already up to the nuts, if you like, in, awakening, if you were, trying to use a different word. But during the nonsense, I mean, my learning curve just sped up to a ridiculous level where, for instance, you kind of realize, the playing on the fear, and also you get to a point of, what we're getting stressed about. We're getting stressed about trying to buy ourselves an extra 10 years, 20 years. One thing we're all going to do is perish at some point.
Yeah. I said to my wife, I said to my wife, as long as we've got food and we've a roof over our head, we're all right. Forget about all this material shit. That's when the material shit, because we thought that we were coming on strong, didn't we? And we didn't know what was going to happen, really, if we're all honest. But what I did know was that we'd survive. I knew we were going to get through it, because I don't think the powers that be really want to take people like us on. That's why they come after the children. Because we're the ones that draw a line and say no. Like the French, I'll use the French resistance as a prime example in World War II. There were certain people in France, very small minority, that fought to the death. Because there was nothing else if they didn't do that. Nothing else. They're giving every bit of freedom up, and that's how I felt. Don't know if anybody else felt like that, but it was a strange phenomenon. Somebody's asked here, Nico Knight. I don't think it's any relation of yours, Mark. How can we reach our highest potential?
The highest potential.
It's a great question.
Yeah, the highest way to reach its potential is to learn how to heal. There's nothing more higher than that, which means you can start by meditation, absent healing. You can start to go and find a healing group, no matter what modality. Try them all. If it doesn't feel right, move on to the next till you get the right thing. I can only say that because that's how I got to my highest potential. I am not at my highest potential anymore because I'm no longer a full-time healer. But when I was, it was the best part of my life. I had no physical pain. I had joy in my heart. I had €1 in my pocket. I was giving away like all the time. I was giving free healings all the time. I was coming home and Susie said, "How was today?" I said, "Fantastic." She says, "How much have you made?" I like, €50. She said, "What are you talking about? You've been working all day." I said, "Yeah, but it was a affair of the heart. I was, but I can't take money off somebody who's just lost the dog or their mum, So, and she said, "You can't keep doing this." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm happy. All right, we might not have a lot of money, but I'm happy." So I realized happiness was more important. And also, just on a side note, everybody, you can talk yourself out of becoming abundant. And I was always skint when I was with my wife, because we always used to say all the time, we can't afford. And we never had any money. I swear to God, no matter how much money I made, we never had any money. It just disappeared. When me and my wife split, nobody was saying to me, we can't afford. And all of a sudden, my business started doing well and things started happening in abundance where now I've got a farm worth 50 million. Oh, no, it's 100.
I thought it was 100 million.
Yeah, it's 200. It's gone up. But the point being is my friend came, and this is a great point as well. My friend came called Ajan, and he looked at the farm, and I said, "Why don't I feel any joy? Why don't I feel that I'm happy and attached to this place? I have no feeling of joy being in this place at all." And he says, "Because you've gone past this. You're above it, so you don't have any feelings to it." And that is a true thing. Yes, I do have money, but it means nothing. And people say, you can say that because you've got it. No, actually, I had no money before and I was happy. I had €1 in my pocket. I used to say, if I've got €1 in my pocket, I can go for a coffee, and that's me happy, because I was happy doing what I was doing. So the point being is, you've got to find things that make you happy, because happiness is, it's just happiness. No, it's a frequency. It's a frequency that gives off such a powerful energy that, one, all of a sudden people are wanting to sit by you because you're not a miserable git anymore. And if you're happy and joyful, people want to go out with you. If you're happy and jolly, people want you to work for them. If you're happy and jolly and feel good, you are medicine for the world. And that's why miracles happen when you find your happiness. I found it through healing. So become everybody, if you've ever been for a course of 2 days in how to, give somebody mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, go for a 3 or 4 day course in healing. I'll tell you something, it'll change your life.
Never tried that, Mike. No, I would try that, actually. That sounds interesting. Yeah.
Changed my life, mate. And I was a stubborn Yorkshire guy who didn't believe in English. I just laughed at people who did this. And
it's strange, isn't it? We have to live in a material world because this is the place where we live. Having nice things is nice. There's no doubt about it. But if you view yourself through those nice things, and you become attached to those nice things,
it's finished.
But let's face it, we've all done it.
Yeah.
We've all done it, whether we like it or not.
Mike, just to say something funny, going back to what you said earlier on, it made me think of my mate. One of my best mates, Dave, said to me about 15, 16, because I used to draw all the time. I wasn't into sport, and I wasn't particularly into fighting like most people in Huddersfield were at the time. And my mate, one of my best mates, Dave, said to me, he goes, Chris, can I ask you something? Mike, yeah, we're like 15. He goes, you don't like fighting, you don't like football, and all you do is draw. Are you a puff?
Exactly what I said earlier on. That's what I said earlier on. Everybody.
No, I forgot to mention that story. I literally had that same story.
Exactly.
You don't like fighting. You don't like sport. All you do is draw. Are you a puff?
Yeah. Any questions on there that maybe we can answer before we go? Any questions?
No, there's no more, I don't think.
Okay.
We'll get some emails together and we'll do it again. And then have them bottomed out properly.
Sometimes, like dreams, you can answer dreams because people sometimes know what dreams are. Like synchronicities, I normally can relate to it from my clients because I had thousands of clients who used to tell me the same story. That's why when you're telling me a story, I'm like, I know all of this.
It's often as well with a dream or a synchronicity that there is important. I had a dream the other day, right? I'll tell you this. And I woke up and I told my missus. And it was that I went to this place and this guy was fitting me in a suit, like a jacket. And it was a duffel jacket, but it was multicolored. And it was the most beautiful jacket I've ever seen. And I was saying to him, I said to Lou, this is like the nicest jacket I've ever seen. I love it. It's beautiful. How much is it? And she said, it's 27 quid. I went, 27 quid? It can't be. He said he made it himself. And she went, no, it is. It's got a tag on the back. And I went to him and said, how much is his jacket? And he said, it's 27 quid. I said, how can it be? You made it yourself. He goes, I just want to get him out there to everybody. And I want you to have this jacket. And I was like, oh my God. And it was also summer and it was a winter jacket. I thought it's still worth buying because I'll keep this forever. And I can't even describe the colours in it.
I hope this was a dream.
It was a dream.
Were you Jacob at that time?
Yeah.
That's what my missus said. She goes, it sounds like Jacob and his technical dream cut.
Exactly.
But it was just one of them dreams that I knew it meant something, but I didn't know what it meant.
Right, but
it stayed in my head.
And then what did you do with it?
Well, I thought about it the next day, but I couldn't
You did nothing with it.
No, but what I mean is, Matt, I couldn't pinpoint what it meant. I couldn't.
But that's the pursuit. But this is what I'm trying to explain to everybody. We stop ourselves from the pursuit of the signs and the messages. There isn't a book out there that we can pick up and say, "Oh, this is what it means." Because that's the easy way out. That doesn't work that way. The whole.
I think often I found if I tell my missus a dream, she can go, "Oh, but that obviously means that," and you go, "Oh, yes." And if she tells me one, I'll say, "Well, that's clearly." For instance, she had one when she started a new job that a boss was dragging her out of her childhood bedroom, and I went, "Well, that's your boss telling you to grow up and do the job, and you're good at the job, but you're refusing to accept it, so you're clinging onto your childhood bedroom." To me, it was quite clear, I think.
That's beautiful.
And she agreed. Oh, yeah, that was quite obvious. But what I mean is, her answer to my coat dream was, that sounds like Joseph and the Technical Drinker that you just said. So there's something there in the fact of that.
To me, it isn't about Jacob or his story.
Yeah.
There's something else. And to me, whenever I see color, it represents, any colors represent the body temple. Like when you say the rainbow is who we are. So if you know some, the 7-day rainbow fast, have you ever heard of that?
No.
There's an ancient wisdom, and it's called the rainbow bridge. And the rainbow bridge is basically the colors of the rainbow. So the first day you drink all the colors of the first color of the rainbow until every day, all the 7 colors. And then it takes you to the end of the rainbow, where you become the pot of gold, because your body temple is now the pot of gold. You are the pot of gold. So the rainbow is a representation of health and well-being. So, it's fascinating.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But rainbows can mean so many different things, just like a crystal can mean so many different things. The point I'm trying to make is that people are writing books about crystals. People are writing books about dreams. And I'm saying we're hijacking ourselves, because each dream is personal to you. And the only person who's going to dissect it and know it truthfully is you. So when I talk about something that you've been through, it's probably something that might wake you up or won't mean anything. Like, oh yeah, that might be something in that. But the point being is that we never follow through what we're meant to see. As a healer, I'm sat in a room receiving messages. I have to work that out. I'll give you a great understanding of this. So if I'm sat in front of somebody, they're not allowed to speak when I read, not say a word. I don't want the name. I don't know. I just pretend, give me a different name before you come. One, so then they can't call me a charlatan, right? Because they're sat there. I start reading for them and I feel them. And all of a sudden, I'll see a jigsaw piece, and it's a photograph, okay? And it might be a photograph of, let's say, a thistle. So I'm seeing a flower. It looks like a thistle. And then I see a bottle of milk. Okay. So now I'm looking at these two and I've got to figure out what this is. Now, I've never heard of milk thistle. But I said, there's milk here and there's thistle. The woman starts crying and she gets out of a bag a box that says milk thistle. And then she realizes that I'm not full of shit, because how the frigging hell did he know I've got milk when a bag shut? Point being is, a healer or a psychic can help you believe in the psychic, believe in this phenomena. And we're always being given signs to wake up to that. We're always being given this shaking and slapping across the face to say, wake up, you're asleep. And when you start to wake up and you start to realize that there's another world working alongside us and helping us, that magic starts to happen.
I will say, Mark, I think I've had these, like, say, these dreams. I could write, literally fill a book on them. I've written them all down. I've got them all written down. But these dreams and synchronicities, and I've always just thought it was the universe or whatever telling me there's more to it. Christian, wake up, there's more to it. I don't know what it meant. I don't know. I won't say I tried to put them into, I tried to get a meaning out of them, but I've droned on to Dom about them for years. But I knew it was trying to give me proof of something else.
Right. So the whole explanation of that is this. If there is another world besides a darker world, and there's a lighter world called the spirit world, if we come into this body and we have to try and explain who we are, what we are, and what we're doing in this world, and we're receiving this information should be given to the next generation, or else the world will collapse. So we are teaching our next generation something that shouldn't be lost, because it is harder then for spirit to tell the next generation. And darkness knows this, and these deceivers know this. And that's why children are now in a black screen.
Yeah.
Because children now are nil and void. So the spirit world now is, in fact, doing everything they can to try and help children, but they're all captive now. They're all imprisoned in the screen. So it's a tough world we're living in right now.
Like Dom said earlier, there's those fundamental questions, even in my lifetime, they've just been asked less and less and less. And now we're at a point where nobody asks those questions or has even that discussion like we're having now. You know, and I will have those conversations with my daughter who's 6. I'll have those conversations with my missus, you know, and with people at work, because you're spreading that, getting that conversation going. Rather, for instance, Matt, I was at work yesterday. I don't know what this means, but the moon was here, right, and the sun was here. So if I'm using my arms, they were a meter apart. Now, other than Brian Cox, no one can explain to me why that was there. The moon was there. And I even got the guys out of work and said, come and look at this. What is that? The moon's there and the sun's there. That means even in my idiot Huddersfieldian brain, 95% of the world is in darkness because there's no light source, because they're both here. How can that work? So either there's 2 moons, 3 moons, or whatever, or we live on something else, or what? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but those 2 things do not make any sense to me. And my daughter, who's 6, we were going down the road. She went, Daddy, the moon's there and the sun's there. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
As an example.
On that note, no, it's a good start. Well, in fairness, I got my son to ask teachers stuff like that, and they can't answer him. You know, is the sun hot or cold? It's hot. Well, how come the closer you get to it, the colder it gets? You know, simple questions like this that they can't even answer. You know, they just stutter and. I mean, I feel sorry for the teachers, because teachers have been hoodwinked like everybody else, but you're not trying to catch the teacher out, because they're just sadly as NPC as the rest of people.
Have you ever looked at the moon when it's glistening at a beautiful orange and it's so big and it's so close, and then you turn to your girlfriend and say, do you know that's 450 gazillion miles away and it takes about 450,000 years to get to it? Yeah. And she goes, yeah, isn't that amazing? And you go, it doesn't feel right.
No.
I'm sorry, but that isn't that far away, pal. No. But anyway, we're just nuts, aren't we? The flat earthers.
Yeah. So
I live on a mountain. I don't know, mate.
No, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. There's been a few hundred tuned in tonight. I think there's over 300 at one point. Not that we're chasing numbers. We don't chase any numbers.
Away. Can I? Yeah. Like somebody said, who's that person who said, "How do you reach enlightenment or your higher self?"
Yeah.
Whether that was, I'd like to ask them to send a message to info@markbajerski.com, and I'd like to send them a box of my oils, incense, which helped me achieve what I needed to do as a healer. The value will be around 500 quid because I'm rich, right? It's because I'm kind, right? So I'm going to send you a beautiful necklace and a beautiful
pearl necklace.
With no pearls, moldavite, Herkimer diamond, one of these, and some beautiful stuff. I'll put it all together as a gift for being here tonight.
Yeah. Will you get that off your yacht? 40 meter. Will you get that off your 40-meter yacht?
No, I've got a 50-meter being built now.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for everybody tuning in tonight. It's been a good chat, actually. I knew it'd go on for a couple of hours, and there's a lot to talk about. FPV, email me please, because we need to get you on, because people are asking me to get you on. If you would, pretty please, FPV. I'm sure Mark would like to listen to your explanation. It'd be good to do it on a live chat, actually, if you can, with one of your presentations to talk over, if you've got one. If not, we'll just have a conversation. That's all right as well. Either I'm happy with. But it would be really good to sit back and just listen, because it blows my mind.
Talking about rainbows, what Mark said, I get the feeling the rainbow's been slightly hijacked.
Yes, and unicorns.
I was going to wait a minute, swear to God, right? Just hang on.
Don't tell me he's got a unicorn.
Don't tell me he's got a unicorn. Come on, Matt, we're going to go.
Guess what I was going to wear tonight?
Oh, bloody hell.
That's a good place to leave it online.
It's a good place to leave it, yeah.
It's not signed yet, just
Okay, then. Well, thanks very much. Just stay on, Mark, for a second. I'll just play the theme tune, man.
Good night, everyone.